Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker, and with me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman. And welcome to our championship preview episode. It is finally here, which is crazy to think in some respects that it's already here, but at the same time, we are here. So we've got lots to talk about in today's episode. Luckily, there's not too much breaking news. Basically, nothing happened over the past couple of days, so we can really get into things here and preview what's going to happen this weekend for all three NASCAR series in the Trucks, Xfinity, and the Cup Series. And we got our final fantasy of the season as well. I've already taken that with the stranglehold, but this is just for fun at the end.
One last dagger, so, right? One last dagger.
We'll see if we can get it here at the end. But I'm just hoping for a good season finale here weekend at Phoenix's first ever time hosting the season finale for the NASCAR Cup Series. And we're also saying goodbye to a couple of the sports greats, and Jimmie Johnson, of course, and Clint Bowyer as well. Maybe Matt Kenseth. We're not entirely sure. We'll talk about him in a little bit as well. And we also have two teams that are going to be in their final Cup Series race this upcoming weekend as well. So lots to discuss today on today's episode. But first off, how you doing today, Kyle? After just kind of a low-key last couple of days, but the pressure's going to start amping up here for these guys in a couple of days.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Obviously, right now was kind of like the honeymoon phase of the week before all the anxiety and stress kicks in. And this weekend's going to be bittersweet, as you mentioned there, with a couple of teams having their final Cup Series races, saying goodbye to Jimmie Johnson, who we both grew up watching dominate the sport, and also Clint Bowyer as well, who, although he did dominate the sport in the same way, he's still one of the fan favorites. So it's going to be bittersweet to say goodbye to those guys, but it's going to be a great championship weekend. I can't wait to get into things today.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get into it here. But before we get into the NASCAR side of things, Formula One just had to throw a little wrench in our plans just to tease us a little bit and give us something to speculate about or look forward to in 2021 as they released one race for next season. And it's a new one. They're making a new addition to next year's calendar with the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. It's going to be a night race, and it's going to be in November. We don't know what the track's going to look like or the layout or anything like that. We just know that it's going to be kind of on the shore of the Red Sea there in Saudi Arabia. So a new addition, a new country coming into Formula One. And it's most likely going to be the second to last race, the penultimate race to the season, with Abu Dhabi most likely staying in that spot for next season if all things go according to plan. But we don't know the 2021 schedule apart from this, basically. But we got one new addition to next year's calendar. There's not much to really talk about in terms of this, just a new location for Formula One to go into, Kyle.
Yeah, from a pure racing perspective, it's always fun to go to a new country, a new circuit, new layout, one of which we don't know yet, which is always going to be interesting from that perspective. But going to Saudi Arabia for a Grand Prix just kind of adds to maybe the negative publicity for Formula One here, and going to countries that have plenty of human rights issues. And we look at the fact that they've had Grand Prix plenty of times in Bahrain, and we know the long history of human rights issues just recently with both Bahrain and Formula One and the protests when they first went there, and the whole messy history there between the two, but also countries like China as well, and continuously going there for Grand Prix. So it's clear and it's unfortunate that F1 doesn't really care about where they go for their Grand Prix as long as there's a check coming with it, which you understand from a business perspective. But when you have the slogan, "We race as one," and you kind of promote that all season long, and then at the end of the season, or before even the end of the season, you announce that you're going to Saudi Arabia for a Grand Prix next season, it kind of leaves that kind of, okay, what are we actually doing here thing? And it'll be interesting to see the fallout from this announcement. There's been plenty of uproar on social media about it. There's been calls for boycotts from drivers already. So as we get closer to this first race in Saudi Arabia, it's going to be fascinating to see what the news stories are like, if any drivers decide to do anything about that, or teams, and just generally what's going to happen here. But if we go with kind of what we've seen in the past in these kind of situations, specifically with Bahrain, we doubt that anything will really happen of it. So from a racing perspective, of course, adding a new circuit's always fun. But from the actual moral perspective, there's definitely some question marks to be had for this decision.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow in some respects here. We'll see how it all ends up going for next season. Who knows? I mean, everything at this point is tentative with the way the world is right now.
That as
So
well.
we'll see what happens in the future. And it's a long time until 1 year's time on the calendar. So we'll see how that all ends up.
Yeah,
But
and hopefully we'll be getting the 2 new circuits that we were supposed to get this year as well, in Hanoi, Vietnam, that street circuit, which is insane. I've been trying to figure it out on F1 2020 this week, and it's not gone well. I'll just say that. And then also Zandvoort in the Netherlands, which is going to be a fun addition as well. So
yeah,
trying
tons of
to
new
find,
circuits.
yeah, trying to find the silver linings to this announcement at least. But yeah, it's going to be a wild news story to follow as we get closer and closer to that race date.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that kind of does it for the news.
We don't need to
want to
dive
spend too much time
into it,
on.
no.
Yeah, we don't know what the circuit's going to look like or anything like that. We just know where it is, and we know what that country kind of represents in some cases as well. So I think this is it, man. I cannot believe we are here. It is NASCAR Championship weekend, and it's going to be a bittersweet, weekend with some people that we grew up watching intently week in and week out. And it's the thing that's so great about it, though, in some respects, is that both of them aren't leaving the racing scene whatsoever. They're just going to different parts of the racing scene. So it's not like this is goodbye forever for these guys. We're still going to see Clint Bowyer in the Fox booth next season with Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy, and then also Jimmie Johnson obviously going over to IndyCar next season for Chip Ganassi Racing on a 15-race schedule, it seems, with the road courses and the street circuits. So we're still not saying goodbye to those guys. Maybe Matt Kenseth. We don't know if we'll see Matt Kenseth back in racing after this season, but I thought it would be fun for today's episode that we would go back and reminisce a little bit and share our favorite moments about specifically Clint Bowyer and Jimmie Johnson, because, they're so pivotal in the sport's growth and the characters that they bring, specifically Bowyer and his sense of humor and always his upbeat energy. And then Jimmie Johnson is just one for the history books, one for the ages, a generational talent. Obviously the past couple of seasons haven't gone the way that he would have liked to end his career on. But before that, I don't think he could have one complaint. He was dominant basically since I've started watching the sport back in 2007. And, I kind of saw Jimmie Johnson's prime. And I mean, looking back on it, I'm grateful for that. But at the time, I got to be honest, we talked about this on this show before. I was like, man, this guy does not lose. I want to see some other people win. And over the past decade or so, he's only won 2 championships since the 2010s have started. So we've got to see a lot of different faces in holding up the championship trophy come season's end. But I thought it would be fun today. We've written some stuff down. We know what our favorite moments of these two cats are. But we'll start off today, I think, with Clint Bowyer. Kyle, there's a couple of moments, Jim. Clint Boyer's got some historic moments and some fun ones at that. So do you want to kick us off with your favorite Clint Bowyer moment?
Yes. So do we want to go like our number one and then go down the rest of them that we have, or do we want to start with like number 3 and then build up to our top moment here?
I mean, we can go back and forth. So I think we start at 3. I think we start at the lowest.
And obviously we'll probably have some overlap at some point.
I imagine so.
Okay, so let's begin with Clint Bowyer. My third favorite Clint Bowyer moment. We're going pretty recently here. I'm going back to the 2018 STP 500 at Martinsville when he ended his 190 race winless streak at Martinsville. Great win from him. It was always great to see Clint Bowyer in victory lane, no matter who you cheered for. He was just that guy that everyone likes. And seeing him end that winless streak on the Monday, the delayed race on the Monday, winning at Martinsville, finally getting that grandfather clock, and seeing the amazing burnout where everybody in the commentary booth thought he was wrecking going into 3 on the celebration lap. He was just so excited to finally celebrate that win again. And that's one that definitely stands out in the recent Clint Bowyer history, at least for me, getting that win for Stuart Haas there, and kind of having that kind of bounce back season, and one of the better seasons we've seen from him recently in 2018, where he picked up a win there, primarily at Martinsville, the one that stands out. So for me, that's my number 3 Clint Bowyer moment.
All right. It's funny you say that because that was my number 3 moment for Clint Bowyer. I think part of it, too, is just seeing the joy that he shared with his son, Cash, when they were running towards each other on the front stretch. And, Bowyer had a rough stretch, rough go of things up until that point, missed the playoffs, and he got back into victory lane, and that was one of his last wins in the Cup Series here. So it's crazy to think that's already been 3 seasons ago since that happened. But at the same time, that moment will always stand out in my mind, just seeing Bowyer's progression up through the ranks kind of thing, where he was an Xfinity Series champion at one point, which is crazy to think about. And then also just becoming a dad, and then just seeing his son, who's most likely going to follow in the same footsteps as Clint did. It's a very talented Bowyer family over there. So I really, really like that moment. So that's number 3 for me as well. So that's pretty funny. But I think before we get into when we go to number 1, we'll do our honorable mentions, because I've got a couple of those that just missed the cut. But we'll go on to number 2 here, Kyle, with your second favorite Bowyer moment.
Yes. So this one, we're going further back in the timeline here. We're going back to 2011 for this one for me. The Good Sam Club 500 at Talladega, when Bowyer pulls out and wins over teammate Jeff Burton. That's just one of the quintessential tandem races that you think back to in that era, where the 2 RCR cars were able to get out in front of everybody, had such a huge gap, and it was them the entire way. It was great to see 2 teammates race each other cleanly, but also tough. And Bowyer pulls out and gets the win there in very close fashion. Like when you think of like the tandem days, you think of those kind of finishes, and that's one of the ones that definitely stands out in my mind for Clint Bowyer.
Yeah, it's in my honorable mentions, that one. It was very, very close to cracking my top 3, but it just missed the cut. So my second favorite Clint Bowyer moment is Phoenix 2012. Is when the iconic Jeff Gordon wrecking Clint Bowyer, and Clint not taking that too kindly, and getting out of his car is totally smashed up on pit road, and he gets out of the car, and he's wondering where his pit crew is. Well, they're fighting Jeff Gordon's crew in the garage. So then he hops out of the car, and the camera's just watching him sprint full blast to the 24 hauler. And then he gets up to the hauler and just starts screaming at him and pointing his finger. And I mean, that's just iconic. I will never forget that. He was in the middle of a championship battle that season as well. Finished second in the points to Brad Keselowski. So he was right in the thick of things, and that wreck really took him out of contention going into Homestead the following week. But that's just typical Clint Bowyer, just can go from such a happy and jubilant guy to an actual anger madman who can just go and go after someone as great as Jeff Gordon. So it was quite the relationship Bowyer and Gordon have. So I thought that was pretty funny. And now that they're going to be in the booth together,
so it's kind of crazy how that's played out for sure. And that one was right there just behind my top 3. I wanted to give the racing the shout out in this one, and I knew that one would come up at some point. But come on, like that's just a quintessential NASCAR moment from the 2010s.
Of course, it's one of the. I feel like some people are forgetting about it now, which is a shame, because it's so great. Like I will never.
I wonder how many times that they're going to show that clip during rain delays for Fox next year.
Oh yeah, I hope if there's something this weekend, they'll probably show it. It's just a great moment for me. So that's number 2 on my list. So, do you have any honorable mentions that just missed the cut for your number 1?
The main one for me was that one there. So you can go ahead and hit us with any honorable mentions you got.
Anytime he's in the booth for Clint Bowyer is an honorable mention for myself. So for next season, we're getting quite the treat. But also, I think back, in probably the best example of it was 2019 in the rain delay at Darlington, when he goes up into the stands and is with Dave Burns and they're interviewing the fan. I thought that was awesome. Hopefully we get to see Bowyer do that kind of thing when he's in the booth, or when they go back to tracks and stuff like that. He can be more interactive with the fans and just be that kind of joy that they need on the pre-race show or something like that. And I think back to 2015, the Daytona Duel, when he did a 360-degree flip and then landed back on all fours. That's going to be forever etched in my brain. That was awesome. And then also the 2012 Spring Martinsville race, where he went 3 wide on 2012. It was correct. I believe so, if I'm not mistaken. It could be 2011.
I believe it was 2011.
I think it was 2011 too. That's my bad. But 2011 Spring Martinsville, Bowyer makes it 3 wide going into the first corner with 2 laps to go, and he spins out Jeff Gordon and Jimmie Johnson in the process. So, and then Ryan Newman went on to win at Martinsville. So a crazy kind of turn of events there. But that's my my 3 honorable mentions for Clint Bowyer because he's just so on the edge of chaos sometimes, and he goes that extra too far. And he's had quite the up and down career. He's gone from back marker to top tier team, back-to-back marker, and he found his way throughout the series, and he finally settled in a little bit over the past couple of seasons at Stewart-Haas Racing. So hasn't quite had the success there maybe that he would have hoped for, but Clint Bowyer is just an all-time great in my books just for everything that he does in personality. So that leads us up to the number 1 for yourself, Kyle. Take it away.
I feel like because we haven't mentioned it yet, it's probably both of our number 1. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's the first race that I genuinely remember watching, the 2007 Daytona 500.
Oh, no way! You have that too.
When Clint Bowyer finishes upside down and on fire.
Man.
That finish, for starters, is one of my favorite in NASCAR history. But it's like the first NASCAR race that I can genuinely remember watching. And yeah, I watched NASCAR before that, but I was like 5-6 years old. You don't remember a ton of stuff when you're that old, but I distinctly remember watching that race at night. It was a later finish as well. Back in 2007, the drag race between Harvick and Mark Martin, and then just seeing the chaos go down behind the drag race to the start-finish line, and then the camera cut to Clint Bowyer finishing the race upside down and on fire. The call etched in my memory. It's not too often you get somebody finishing 18th as the number 1 memory you have for them or the number 1 moment. But come on, everyone that's a NASCAR fan knows and loves that finish and will always remember not only that moment for Clint Bowyer, but also that paint scheme as well, the 07 Jack Daniels. It's just quintessential mid-2000s NASCAR, and that for me has got to be the number 1 moment.
Okay, so I can't believe that we have such similar memories of this race because that was the first race I had ever watched in NASCAR before that. I had never watched anything really before that. I'm a huge fan of the Cars movie franchise.
Right,
Everybody knows that if you know me. It's my favorite movie of all time. So that came out in 2006. So then in 2007, my dad was flipping through the channels, and it just caught my eye. I just caught the glimpse of it, and it was like 6 or 7 laps to go, and I was like, Dad, change the channel back. So I just tuned in, and at that point, I wasn't a Kyle Busch fan or anything, but he was still in the thick of things there. And Mark Martin looking for, I didn't know, but soon found out that he was looking for his first Daytona 500 trophy and everything that went into that finish. And I'll never forget Kyle spinning off of turn 4, starting the whole wreck with Kenseth behind him, and Harvick and Mark Martin get away with it. They go to the finish line, and it's a drag race to the line, and then McReynolds and Mike Joy with a great call, and then I think that camera angle as well, you never see that for a finish of a 500 where it's on the other side of the finish line.
Right.
Where it's in the grass, and that's how they did it. I really love that. I don't know why they don't have that anymore, but they usually show it from the rooftop angle.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Indianapolis 500.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I appreciated that. And then just to top it all off, Clint Bowyer just sliding across the finish line on his roof and on fire. And then I just remember Larry McReynolds, he's coming across the start finish line on his roof, and he's on fire. Oh, it's just iconic. I'll never forget that, and it's kind of what got me hooked into NASCAR. Who would have thought that little moment and just flipping through the channels and stuff for myself would be. It's the first race I'll remember, and I'll never forget it. Not just because I've watched it so many times on YouTube, but also just from that moment. So, Clint Bowyer, if you're watching or you're listening, you got me hooked basically on NASCAR with everything that happened there. So
thanks for wrecking.
Thanks for wrecking and finishing 18th in the Daytona 500 in 2007. So just a great race there, a great finish, and I'm so happy that I didn't know Clint Bowyer at all in terms of what he brought to the energy and everything else that he brought to the sport. But after watching him over the past 13 years, you've really come to love the guy. How can you not love Clint Bowyer?
Exactly.
He's basically a fan favorite. It blows my mind that he's not the fan favorite vote, because I think that he should get the most popular driver in my opinion, because he's just so likable.
He got the fan vote at the All-Star race this year, correct?
Yeah, just because of circumstances. So at least he's got that to his resume.
But
At least he's got that to his resume. So everybody loves Clint Bowyer. So I'm happy that it's crazy that we had basically the same memories and the same highlights of Clint Bowyer. So it's definitely limited with the amount of wins that he's had. So that kind of narrows things down. But any final thoughts on Clint Bowyer himself, Kyle? Anything from your perspective that you remember the most or that you appreciate the most about the great Clint Bowyer, the Emporia, Kansas native?
I mean, just over these last few years, just his personality just even more blossoming, and just his presence on social media growing, getting more involved on the broadcast, whether that be the off-rain duty where he went in the stands like you mentioned, or these past year and a half, 2 years now that he's done some color commentary in the lower series, and now obviously parlaying that into a full-time gig next year with Fox is going to be great. And just the final thing on Clint Bowyer is that he's a fan favorite for a reason, and it's not just the personality. He's also a great guy. I remember my dad, he went to one of the Phoenix races, I think 2, maybe 3 years ago. I can't exactly remember what year it was. He was in Phoenix for a business trip, and it happened to coincide with the race weekend, which that lucky son of a gun. But he went to the race. He had pit pass, and he met Clint Bowyer. And when he came back, he just gushed about the experience, how great of a guy he was, how funny he was. And my dad hadn't really had a favorite driver for a while there, but these last couple of seasons, he's been a big Clint Bowyer guy. So it's going to be great to see him go out this weekend. Fan favorite for many reasons, and cannot wait to see him in the booth next year where he will completely smash it.
Yeah, you could see from the Pro Invitational earlier this season how well he kind of fit in over there, and it's just going to be a great addition to that already good duo, but he just steps it up that even to the next level there for Clint Bowyer. So good luck to Clint this weekend as well. We'll talk about him just a little bit later on in our fantasy preview, just quickly on him. But for Clint Bowyer's memorable moments, that was ours. They're pretty fun to reminisce about. So I think we move on here to the 7-time champion, one of the greatest of all time, Jimmie Johnson. So this is a difficult one to trim it down to top 3 moments. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can go into this decision, whether you want to look at wins, championships, anything like that. So do you want to go first for this one, or should I?
Sure, yeah, I'll go first for this one. My number 3 moment, going back to 2005 for this one, the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte when Jimmie Johnson passes Bobby Labonte at a turn 4 to steal the win away from the 18. I don't know why, but that has always been one of those replays and finishes that has always stuck in my mind and been one of those quintessential Jimmie Johnson moments. The Lowe's car winning at the time at Lowe's Speedway, just fantastic stuff. I will always remember him going to the inside on 2 and the commentary going, "Oh, you can't pass there," him tucking back behind on the backstretch and then getting it done on the outside after out of turn 4. Just amazing stuff, a quintessential Jimmie Johnson moment, and one of the earlier Jimmie Johnson moments as well, going back to 2005 as well.
Yeah, that's a great one. It didn't make my list, but I strictly went for my list, something that I watched, essentially. So I didn't watch anything prior to 2007, obviously with the Daytona 500 there that I just mentioned. So I'm sticking in 2007 for my first one here, and it goes back to my birthday in 2007 on November 4th to 2007 at Texas Motor Speedway. The great battle between himself and Matt Kenseth. It was an incredible battle there to finish it off. Because they're 2 great paint schemes that they had on it, Cobalt Tools, and then the red and blue kind of 17, whatever the sponsor was there. But those were 2 great paint schemes and a great finish in that one where Johnson was trying so hard for so many laps behind Kenseth, and he just couldn't quite get past him. Kenseth was on 2 tires, Johnson on 4, and Kenseth was just blocking him and just went into every which lane that Johnson wanted to run in, and then eventually he got by him on the bottom in turns 1 and 2, coming to the white flag, and then he finished the pass off in 3 and 4. So it was a great little battle there between himself and Matt Kenseth. So I'll always remember that, and it just added to that it was on November 4th. So it was just a great race there, and my first season of watching NASCAR it was in 2007 was almost as good as it gets in my opinion. But yeah, that was a great one for myself.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one there. Let's go along to number 2 for me, and this is another one that I definitely don't remember watching. But when you look at both the history of Jimmie Johnson and Hendrick Motorsports, I almost thought about putting this one number 1, to be honest, and that's the 2004 Bass Pro Shops MBNA 500 at Atlanta. Jimmie Johnson wins 1 week after the Hendrick plane crash in which 10 members of the Hendrick team passed away. Of course, he won the race at Martinsville, but the week prior, but just all the circumstances during that race, it was the week after. That's the one that is really etched in everyone's memory. All the victims of the crash being on the hood there, winning the race over Mark Martin as well, and just seeing the emotion from Chad Knaus immediately after the win, all the Hendrick guys in victory lane after that one. That's just one of the more emotional victories in recent NASCAR history, at least, and that one's got to be in the top 3 for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's not my top 3 just because of what I said previously, but it's in my honorable mentions just because it has to be. It's Jimmie Johnson at his finest, and the emotion from just pure elation and relief kind of thing. It's just a great win for uniting that team back together after the bits and pieces that broke apart over the past week. I mean, it was just heartbreak. We lost the like of Ricky Hendrick, an up-and-coming racer in himself, Rick Hendrick's son, obviously. And we lost John Hendrick as well with his 2 twin daughters in that one. So it was it's an emotional one. I mean, I don't remember it, obviously. I didn't watch it, but from watching highlights and stuff like that and it being brought up over the years of watching it, it's quite the moment that Jimmie Johnson went out there and held off Mark Martin and won at Atlanta. So that's a great one, Kyle. It's definitely in a top 5 for sure. In anybody's list, it would be in mine as well, even if I didn't watch it. But my second one is going back to 2008 for the Summer Auto Club race. And you may think, what the heck happened here? Well, that was my first ever NASCAR race. So the fact that I got to see Jimmie Johnson win one of his 83 wins is something that I really appreciate now. Maybe not at the time I was really wanting Kyle to win, but I wanted him to go for the weekend sweep that weekend. But it was a great kind of a weekend there. I'll never forget it. Summer at Auto Club, the scorching heat in California. I missed when it had 2 dates, and the fact that they're tearing that track down to bring it into a short track is still a little bit sad to think about for myself. But I've always got an emotional attachment in terms of that. In my first season of watching it, I was a little bit of a Jimmie Johnson fan. I'm not gonna lie, but then
that's some breaking news.
Yeah, so I was a big Hendrick Motorsports guy when I first got in because Jeff Gordon had the flame paint scheme, one of the best paint schemes of all time. So he was my favorite driver when I first got into the sport. And then I eventually realized that Kyle Busch was the guy I really wanted to root for the next season after that in 2008. So by the time it got up to that point in the summer of 08, I'd really found my loyalty, and it hasn't really broken since. So at that point in time, Jimmie Johnson running the Jimmie Johnson Foundation car as well. Beautiful paint scheme, one of the best paint schemes I remember from watching all my years of NASCAR. So that one's just a little bit more sentimental. It's not going to be on anybody's list, really, if they're thinking back to best Jimmie Johnson moments. There's no number wins that he broke in that race or anything like that. It's just something towards myself. So that's why that is my number 2. But it's not my number 1 because there's one that I'll forever believe that is one of the best finishes in NASCAR history. But that's my number 2 with the Auto Club Summer Race in 2008.
All right. Well, you mentioned a finish there, so
we're gonna have the same one. 100%.
I'm not going to mention my honorable mention because I feel like my honorable mention might be your number 1.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and say my number 1 first.
Okay.
I think because my honorable mention is one of the greatest finishes in NASCAR history, and my number 1 is a little bit different. So I will go with my number 1. We may have the same number 1. I don't know. But my number 1 was a pretty easy pick for me. After I from like 2009 to 2010 until like middle to later 2016, I stopped watching NASCAR as much. I would basically only watch like the restrictor plate races and then select races around that. But I wasn't as invested in watching every single week like I was before that when I was a lot younger or after that, mainly because, and I got back into the sport primarily because, and it's no secret, Cole Hearn is from my area. He went to my high school, and seeing him become a crew chief for a top level team reignited my interest in both racing and NASCAR. And then in the later 2016 to 2017 season is when I really got heavily invested back in NASCAR. And obviously now we're doing a show about it. So it was quite clear how that's gone. But in that 2016 season, we all know how that ended. The Ford EcoBoost 400 at Homestead, in which Jimmie Johnson won his 7th and final championship in NASCAR. It's just one of those where it wasn't necessarily one of those victories that you kind of expected going into things. It was one that he quote unquote stole, I guess you would say. But you know what? Nobody cared that he stole it because he went ahead and he tied for the most ever championships with 7, with obviously Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt Sr. One of the great moments in the last few years of NASCAR as well, just seeing the elation of that 48 team going out and doing what I don't think a lot of people expected of them in that race. So for me, that's my number one Jimmie Johnson moment.
That's a good one. It's not my number one. It's in my
I believe I know what your
mentions.
number one is, and it would have been right there.
I don't think you do.
Really?
I don't think you do what my number one is.
Okay. Go for it then.
But for my honorable mentions quickly for Jimmie before I get into my number one, obviously 7 championships across the board is an honorable
you can
mention.
pick any of them.
And it's any of them. Before I get into my number one, I just wanted to pose a question to you. Which one do you remember the most, or which one do you think was the best championship that Jimmie Johnson won? Just out of curiosity, because we basically watched the entire stretch of that he won, besides maybe 2006. But besides, what do you think is his best championship or the most memorable one?
I mean, the most memorable one for me, is just 2016, just because it is that one where I was a little bit older. It was the first one that I remember getting back into the sport after being younger for the previous ones. But, there's just so many great championships to look at, man. It's ridiculous. The guy was so good for so many years. You could say any of them, and you would have a pretty darn good argument. I'll go ahead and I'll say 2007, I believe it is, when he won 4 of the last 5 races, winning Martinsville, Atlanta, Texas, Phoenix here. And that's just an insane streak to end the season. And that's just Jimmie Johnson and that 48 team at its finest. They just found a second gear when it came chase time. And they did it year in, year out. And sure, if you look at overall points at the end of seasons, Jimmie Johnson, I believe, only led in 3 seasons, but that was intentional because that team would just try stuff for the first 26 races or however long. And then when it came chase time, they'd figured out all the stuff that would work and they would just be on another planet. And that's why they won 5 straight. But I think 2007 there, winning 4 of the last 5 is just pure insanity.
Yeah, that is mine as well. Just because I was a big Jeff Gordon fan, and that was Jeff's biggest shot to win a championship. He was so consistent. I think he had 32 top 5s or something, 32 top 10s or something like that. He barely missed the top 10, but Jimmie's incredible 4 out of 5 to end the season got Jeff. And he just slipped up, I think, at one of those races, and that was it. It just turned the entire tables. And if Jeff Gordon wins that championship, you're looking at probably him in that conversation of greatest of all time. He's probably just a little bit behind the likes of Earnhardt and Petty, just because of the lack of championships. But Gordon could have won more than that for sure. But that was one that I think really he missed out on. And then after that, it kind of got out of control for Jimmie's success, and then also then after 2010 I'm like, okay, I'm done. I can't believe he's won this many. Basically since I started watching this sport I hadn't seen a different champion. So
maybe you were the jinx.
Yeah, that's what I have told myself for many years. But his 7 championships, I'll give 2007 as the most memorable one for me, and then 2 finishes to kind of in my honorable mentions before my first one. This is why I don't think you have my first one. It's different than what you think. So the 2 ones I think of is for honorable mentions. 2008 Kansas with Carl Edwards, the incredible video game move that he pulled there with Carl Edwards, that is, going into turn 3 and just not letting off the gas.
If it works in the video game, might as well try it.
Exactly. And it was just an incredible finish. Jimmie didn't really have much to do with it, just the fact that he was in contention there. But I think back to that one as a great finish. And then also the 2011 Talladega finish.
Oh, okay.
That's the one I knew.
That's the one I thought would be number 1 there. Okay.
No, but it's an honorable mention. One of the greatest finishes in NASCAR history. 4 wide across the line. Hendrick Motorsports, all 4 cars. Then you've got the Childress duo, and then you've got the Roush duo. It was insanity. And then Jimmie Johnson, the furthest back, starting the final lap, won the race. So it was quite the finish there. But my number 1 is not maybe his biggest win. It's 2007, the spring Martinsville race. That is my number 1 Jimmie Johnson moment because of the incredible finish between himself and Jimmie Johnson. I feel like that was kind of the changing of the guard in some respects over there at Hendrick Motorsports. It was, I'll never forget how they kind of directed it or produced it there at the end, having the split screen of the 2 crew chief and Steve Letarte and Chad Knaus, and then having the battle on the bottom of the screen. And then Jeff Gordon was right there for so many laps, and he didn't want to put the bumper to him. And then Darrell Waltrip's calling, he's going to move him. He's going to move him. He's going to move him. And then they touch once, twice, drag race, Jimmie Johnson. I don't know. I just think that's my favorite Jimmie Johnson moment. It's going to be overlooked by the likes of those other ones that I mentioned. But for myself, coming into the sport, seeing the greatest paint scheme basically of all time with Jeff Gordon and then Jimmie Johnson, the 2 greatest probably at that point in time in the sport, going at it at Martinsville, a great track, a short track racing. I can't get much better than that. So, and the fact that the bump and run didn't necessarily work, it was pretty awesome as well. And I would have liked to if it wasn't in the COT cars, but at the end of the day, I'll accept it. So those are my Jimmie Johnson moments, but there's a list of many.
Oh, there's so many that you can, the guy's just won so many races. There's so many that you could pick from. And I think that we got a good batch of 6 or 7 unique moments there. There's just so many to pick from. And we've talked about it recently as well, both with Jimmie Johnson and Lewis Hamilton, in appreciating things in the moment of greatness. And looking back on Jimmie Johnson's runs, I do wish that when I was younger, I appreciated it more when I was watching. And I feel like a lot of people probably feel that way because seeing these last, 3.5 seasons of Jimmie Johnson has been definitely a little bit disappointing just to see him just not be able to break through for that final win or anything like that. And just seeing the just bad luck or struggles of that 48 team definitely makes you wish that you could go back in time and appreciate that success in the moment.
For sure. It's crazy that it's already at an end for Jimmie Johnson in the NASCAR Cup Series. And I mean, I grew up watching this guy, loving and hating him kind of thing. It was a love-hate relationship. But at the end of the day, I'm very thankful to have watched one of the greatest of all time in NASCAR. Just quickly before we end the talk about Jimmie Johnson, I just wanted to give his career stat line because it's pretty incredible. So he's got 685 Cup starts to date. So 686 will be the time after Phoenix this upcoming week. It could be 687 without the COVID case kind of thing earlier this season, but with he could have made the playoffs if that was the case as well. So 7 championships, tied for the most all time with Dale Earnhardt and the King Richard Petty. 83 wins, tied for 6th all time, tied with Cale Yarborough behind Darrell Waltrip and Bobby Allison. So he was one short. I remember when he won at Dover and he had the special helmet to Cale Yarborough, and then he had his sights set on Bobby Allison and Darrell Waltrip because everybody thought he would obviously break it. Like Jimmie Johnson's still winning races, and the fact that Dover race is going to be most likely, unless something miraculous happens this weekend,
could you imagine
his final race win? It's crazy. I would have never thought at that time, but I remember thinking to myself, I hope he didn't jinx himself here with this helmet where he's looking ahead to the next win total here at 84. And it's crazy to think that not that he did, but the fact that he never got there to get to 5th all time, which is obviously something that he had set his sight on. And I thought he would for sure win a race this season after the speed they showed last season at the end. We did a RTA sports update kind of show last season in our production class, and I said it on that show. I like the speed that Cliff Daniels and Jimmie Johnson brought at the end of the season when they shift from Jeff Mendering to Cliff Daniels atop the pit box, and that never really came to fruition, unfortunately, for Jimmie Johnson. But he's got one shot this weekend. Maybe he can upset the championship party. But with those kind of stats, it's incredible. Also, on top of that, 231 top 5 finishes, 373 top 10s, 36 poles. I thought it would be a little bit more, but nonetheless, 36 poles, and then an average finish in his career of 13.1. That doesn't justify his championships and everything like that, that number. The past 3 seasons has totally brought that number up. But before that, I imagine it was near the 10 average finish mark. But the past couple of seasons have brought that up a little bit, when in reality, it's hard to really look at these past 3 seasons and try and put the numbers for that into the greatness that Jimmie Johnson's career was. So it's incredible that it's come to an end, but it's something that I'm very grateful to have watched for so many seasons, and likewise for you too, Kyle. So just quickly for our visual viewers, if you are not subscribed to the Green Flag, make sure to subscribe. We have a YouTube channel now. And for the visual viewers behind me, I've just done a little bit of a shout out to Jimmie Johnson. I went on a little bit of a scavenger hunt, and I found all of the Jimmie Johnson diecasts that I've ever owned. They're kind of here, if I can do it correctly. Yeah, they're on this top row here behind my head. So I've got a whole bunch of Jimmie Johnson cars there, along with his 2007 championship car behind me as well. So I don't try to show off my Jimmie Johnson stuff too much, but for this one, I thought I could make an exception. So I wanted to pay tribute to the 7-time champion, and something that we may never see again in terms of 7 championships. It's just been incredible to watch. So any last thoughts on Jimmie Johnson, Kyle? I know we'll talk about him on Monday after the show and just briefly here, but this is our last chance to really thank Jimmie Johnson.
Just finally here, if it is the final win, and we do kind of expect it to be that way, it is also kind of fitting that it came at Dover, the track that is probably, I don't think many people would really argue, to be honest, his best track in his career. And getting that final win, what we would assume to be, unless he can pull off the miracle at Phoenix this weekend, it is fitting in that regard. But just going to be, again, one of those bittersweet moments this weekend, being able to see him in NASCAR, likely for the final time. Now, we don't know if there's going to be one-off races in the future. We do know the IndyCar schedule. We don't know if there might be a one-off in the future. That's just something that we don't know at this point. But as of right now, we expect it to be his final race in NASCAR, certainly his final race in a full season. So going to be very appreciative to watch both him and Clint Bowyer go out for the final time this weekend.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So that's a great way to end the Jimmie Johnson and Clint Bowyer memorable moments. Yes. It's been quite the journey, to say the least, with watching those guys. And they're not going away, like I said to kick off the show. They're still going to be around. We're still going to be able to watch them both on and off the track. So very thankful to have watched these guys. And thank you to both Jimmie and Clint for everything that you've done over my NASCAR watching lifespan, and also for Kyle's as well. So quickly, before we get into the fantasy preview here, we'll just quickly touch on what this is for the last this race is for the last for a couple of these organizations, and also Matt Kenseth potentially. Like I said, we don't know. We expect this to be Matt Kenseth's last race, but we've said goodbye to him so many times.
Is this like his 4th final race? Like,
I feel like it. So quickly, this is the last race for Germain Racing, and also for Leavine Family Racing. These two organizations have been middle of the pack for basically their entire Cup Series tenure, and obviously Germain Racing also has had a Truck Series team at one point, the famous Todd Bonine as well. He still does his work with Fox, obviously, for the Truck Series, but he won championships with them. And they were a force to be reckoned with down in the Truck Series. I remember the days of Ron Hornaday, Tom Bonine, Mike Skinner. I love Mike Skinner. I was a big fan of Mike Skinner. I had a thing for Flames back then. I think it was.
All kids did.
Yeah, it makes sense. But there was a great time in the Truck Series then, and even now. It's just, I don't feel like there's ever been a dry spell in the Truck Series. It's just been so consistent, really, over the past 13 years since I've been watching it. So Germain Racing has gone out and done some incredible things at times in the Truck Series, namely, but they've been competitive in the Cup Series on their day, with Ty Dillon mostly taking the ride up here as the the end of their tenure in the Cup Series has kind of progressed. But before that, Casey Mears was a mainstay in that 13 car for many seasons as well. So congrats to a successful tenure in the Cup Series. We're going to miss you. Obviously, they are leaving the sport with the new entry of 2311 Racing, or XI Racing, with Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin taking over that charter and taking over their facilities as well. So it's quite the cast of characters that are saying goodbye to us here this weekend. And also on top of that, we have Leavine Family Racing in their final race this upcoming weekend as well. Obviously, Bob Leavine sold their team earlier this season, a charter to Spire Motorsports as well. So this is Christopher Bell's last ride in the 95 car this weekend, the Lightning McQueen number that I love so much. And then obviously Bell's going over to the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. But this is the last time for the 95 car that we've come to really love over the past couple of seasons, with Matt DiBenedetto getting in there. And then before that, Michael McDowell was in there. Casey Kane was also in there. People forget that when he left Hendrick Motorsports, he went there and then had his health issues to end his Cup Series career there, unfortunately. But it's always been right in the thick of things in that midfield battle, and they've taken that next step with that alliance with Toyota over the past 2 seasons. So it's going to be bittersweet, like we said. It's a tough one to see some of these teams go, but to soften the blow, we have some great entries coming in for next season. But anything on Germain Racing and Leavine Family Racing for yourself, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, just for both of us as well, these were two of those mid-pack teams that we've both seen over these handful of years and just watching the sport. You look at the 13 Germain Racing, obviously wasn't quite able to replicate the success that they had in the Truck Series, but that was still a formidable, decent mid to back marker team for a lot of their Cup Series career. You look back to the original days with Max Pappas, and then obviously mainly with Casey Mears is where we remember them, and then more recently when they switched to Chevy and Ty Dillon. And this was a team that had some pretty solid results, specifically at the super speedways. And you look at 3 overall top 10s in Daytona 500s is nothing to scoff at for that small team. You look at a couple top 5s, even just recently here, a 3rd place finish, their best ever in their final super speedway race, which was a great way to go out there. Just great to see from that team. And obviously we'll always remember the Geico sponsored car. It was one of the few full season sponsorships that remained in NASCAR, and obviously with that sponsorship going away this year, ultimately meant the doom for the team, which is unfortunate to see, but let's remember them fondly for what they were. And also for Leavine Family Racing, which is a team that over the last 5, 6, 7 years went from essentially a start and park team to a consistent back marker, to these last couple of years being a legitimate mid-pack team that almost won a race last year at Bristol with Matt DiBenedetto, which is a remarkable thing to see. It's unfortunate that everything that went on this year externally from NASCAR resulted in them having to sell, because it really did kind of feel like that this team was on a similar projection to Furniture Row Racing, where Furniture Row similarly started as a start and park back marker team and built their way all the way up to ultimately a championship winning team. And it really felt like Leavine Family Racing was kind of on a similar path to becoming a more and more competitive team. You look back to some of the early days with Michael McDowell, of all people, back in the day, and even before that, you've got names like Scott Speed, Reed Sorensen, Scott Riggs making starts for the team. But over these last few years, they've had some legit guys, even Ty Dillon making some spot starts for that team as well. But Michael McDowell, 2 stints with the team, and then after that becoming even more of a prominent team with Casey Kane taking the ride there. Obviously was shortened due to health concerns. So Regan Smith, the super sub, coming in for the end of the season, putting up some good results there. Matt DiBenedetto taking the shot when they switched to Toyota. And obviously last year, probably the best moment of the team's history, finishing second at Bristol at the night race, just barely missing out on that first ever victory for both DiBenedetto and that 95 team. And then this past season with Christopher Bell, got caught behind the 8 ball quite a bit with a rough start to the season. Just wasn't able to get those starting positions due to the format, which I will always have a gripe about, because I felt that this team was kind of shafted a little bit, I guess I would say, just given the circumstances. But you look at some of the results this year, and given the fact that they were consistently starting in the late 20s, early 30s, sometimes even late 30s, due to that questionable qualifying format, I guess I'll say, the fact that they've been able to pull off as many top tens as they have, and similarly peaking at the end of the season with that third place finish at Texas has been great to see. But going to miss both of those teams, it's just kind of the circumstances that we live in this year, external circumstances affecting teams. But if we look at the silver linings, be thankful that they were here, and then let's look forward to the future, specifically with 23XI Racing going to be the marquee team stepping in next season.
I'm going to miss the gecko from Geico on the car. And then also, it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that they never did a throwback to Lightning McQueen on the number 5 car.
Come on.
Number 95 car for the Darlington throwback. Like, come on. Like, it was it was right there in your face, and you couldn't see it. It's just a missed opportunity, man.
I'm sure there was some copyright stuff that prevented it, but I don't know how you don't get that to happen.
I would have totally sold out the diecast for that. That's just going to be just a missed opportunity. But I digress. Besides from the paint schemes and the sponsors and whatnot, they've been a great addition to the sport, and they're going to be sorely missed in the midfield battle there. But hopefully the new teams coming in like Trackhouse and as well as 23XI Racing, they can pick up that slack being left over. So those are kind of the things that are going to be in their final stages here going into the race on Sunday. So that's unfortunate to see, but we'll see if Matt Kenseth ever does come back in the Cup Series. It's a running joke in this show so far, but in all seriousness, if this is Matt Kenseth's last race, we thank him for his time in the sport as well. He's been a sensational spokesperson and has given us some highlights. The best moment by far is the 2015 Falls Martinsville race when he took out Joey Logano. That was the best moment of Matt Kenseth forever, and maybe one of the best NASCAR moments ever, in my opinion. But it's just something that'll stick out and be shown on highlight shows and for the rest of our lives for sure. So thank you to Matt Kenseth on his maybe his final race here.
Likely his final.
Yeah, we'll see. It is what it is. But if it is, Matt Kenseth, thank you very much for everything you've done. So that does it for the thank yous and the memories and everything like that. For the bittersweet moments kind of the show. So we go into here, Kyle, the final fantasy of the season. Holy smokes. Well, just to recap from last week, Kevin Harvick is not in the championship 4 by some stretch of the imagination. So we're going to get full points from Kevin Harvick this weekend. Explain how fantasy works this weekend real quick. So this weekend, it's a little different than every other week during the season. The whatever usages you have left, obviously, it depends on what you've got. But for this weekend, the Championship 4 drivers will not earn stage points in the race for fantasy or for anything this weekend. It's just whoever finishes the highest among the Championship 4 in all 3 series wins the championship. So that's what it comes down to this weekend. So that means that if you win the race, if you're a Championship 4 guy, which it has taken since 2014, since this format has been introduced, which we could probably see again this weekend, but with some of the names, that are outside of the Championship 4, there's a possibility that someone could upset that streak. But let's just say that they do win the race, the Championship 4 driver, then they would get 40 points, the max you can get with just a win. Just like any other week, if you didn't score any stage points, you get the maximum win, which is 40 points. So anybody after that, you get declining points, which I think is 35 is second place, 5 points. So let's just say a Championship 4 guy finishes second, then they get 35 and then 34, then 33 and so on throughout the field. So it's a bit of a risk to put all 4 championship guys in your lineup, that's for sure. So you kind of have to predict who's going to be your championship winner if you want to try and get that 40 point max. And then you can probably skate by with a 35 if you want to guess the top 2. But putting all 4 in is a very risky strategy, and it's been unlikely over the past couple of seasons where the top 4 has finished the top 4. The only exception would be 2018 with Joey Logano's win, then followed by Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, and then Kyle Busch to round out that top 4. But besides that, if I can recall correctly, I don't think there's been a championship 4 where the top 4 guys finished top 4. So I mean, I think I'm right on that, but I could be wrong.
I feel pretty confident about that.
I'm 100% right. I'm calling it. I'm thinking Harvick, Newman, and Logano. No. 2015, no. 2016, no. Obviously, for Carl Edwards. 2017, no. And then 2018, no. 2018, yes, and then 2019, no. So it's just 2018 that has the top 4 and the championship 4 finishing top 4. So it's a bit of a risk to put in all 4. Not saying that it's impossible; it's happened before. But with the likes of Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. outside that top 4, there's a likelihood that they could upset that kind of playoff party. And with the restarts that Phoenix has as well, we could see maybe a championship guy get wrecked in the end of things as well with the championship on the line. So that's what it breaks down to this weekend. But besides those 4, everybody else earns the stage points. So there's no if a championship 4 guy finishes first, second, third, and fourth in the stage, then they don't get points, and then the 5th guy does not get 10 stage points. He gets whatever 5th place usually culminates to, which would be 6 points, stage points. So that's what it breaks down to this weekend. It's definitely a lot of different strategies you can go into it this weekend, but for ourselves throughout the playoffs and stuff, we have had different usages, that's for sure, at different periods of time. So for Kyle himself, he's out of usages on Chase Elliott and Martin Truex Jr. The only guy I am out of usages on is surprisingly Ryan Blaney. I didn't realize that was the case, but I am out of usages on Ryan Blaney, but I didn't have a plan to play him this weekend anyway. So I still have all championship 4 guys remaining besides Truex and Elliott for Kyle. He's got everybody else at his disposal for this weekend. So that's what it breaks down to. Hopefully that makes sense for you all listening and watching. So without further ado, Kyle, I think it's time to get into the picks because I've been dying to do this for a couple of days here.
Just before we dive in, I want to give some context to how fantasy doesn't necessarily work like it has in the past weeks, where it's just kind of your favorites in terms of the guys mainly still in the championship race, because as you mentioned and outlined, the guys in the championship 4 do not earn stage points this weekend, which kind of throws a wrench into things. And we'll take a look back to last year's championship finale to kind of give some context to that, where the top 5 points finishers in that race were Kyle Busch, obviously, who won the race, but then Eric Jones, Joey Logano, Clint Bowyer, and Ryan Blaney. So that just kind of goes to show how it kind of gets screwed up a little bit, the fantasy element of this, because you can finish first in both the first 2 stages if you're a championship 4 guy, and then wreck out on like a final restart, and you're only getting like a couple of points at the end of the day. So it definitely throws a wrench into things and makes the strategy calls much more stressful for everyone involved in fantasy this weekend. But yes, we're diving into things here. Would you like me to start things off? I feel like there's one obvious pick.
Before we get into it, I don't know who my championship pick as of right now is. So for my fantasy here, I have got to make my decision here relatively quickly. I don't want to spoil anything. We'll get into what we think. I will also say
that I don't know who I'm going to pick for my championship yet, but I have it between 2 guys, and I have those 2 guys in my lineup. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Well, you're ahead of me, so we'll see how these first couple of picks go.
There's one.
I think we go into the guys that are not in the championship 4 first. Yeah. We'll get out of those out of the way, and then we'll go down in the order.
And there's one very easy one this weekend, and it's the guy that we both have usages left on. And
John Hunter didn't even check.
Yes, John Hunter.
No, sorry.
I've used him once, and he got me a win at Talladega, so I thank him for that.
All right, randomizer king, we get it.
Hey, you know what? It worked.
But Kevin Harvick. Yeah.
Yes, Kevin Harvick, which is an interesting one because he is not in the championship 4, which means he is one of those drivers that gets full stage points as well, which could be key because Kevin Harvick could go out and win both stages and win the race, if we're being honest. And he could get you like a full 60 points in this case, which I would feel bad if you're somebody that's used up all your Kevin Harvick usages and you don't have him for this all of a sudden. But no, I think everyone probably was saving him for this championship race, figuring he would be probably one of the two favorites at the very least, if not just the favorite going into the championship race. And instead, he's not racing for the championship. And we already talked about it earlier this week, our thoughts on all of that. But for fantasy, that just means great things because you get full Kevin Harvick this weekend, and he is probably the easiest pick I've ever had to make in fantasy, at least for this one.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's not even close.
Yeah, no debate whatsoever.
Like, I will say this. Since the repave and the reconstructing,
he hasn't been as dominant.
He hasn't been as dominant, but he's still been pretty damn good. So,
Yeah.
And his average finish in his career here at Phoenix, 8.97 is his average finish. 9 wins, 18 top fives, 1,662 laps led, and he starts 11th on Sunday. So that's starting position. He's going to have to come through the field a little bit in that first stage. But besides that, Kevin Harvick should be in your lineup no matter what if you have a usage. So, I mean, I won't even take it back if he wrecks this weekend. Like, you had to go into this weekend thinking Kevin Harvick's going to perform. He's out for vengeance this weekend. I said that word tons of time on this show, but this one is really, really key. He's trying to go out there and prove that this format, whether you like it or not, he's trying to prove that he is this year's champion. So, like we talked about on Monday, he's my champion. I feel like Kyle is in similar kind of opinion, but nonetheless, Kevin Harvick is going to be a mainstay if you have a usage left on him for Phoenix this weekend. So that's number one on our fantasy picks for this week. Let's go to number two.
Yes.
A non-playoff guy. I mean, I'm going to say mine. You probably do have him as well. It's Kyle Busch.
Yes, of course.
Kyle Busch is in my lineup this weekend just because I want to get all the usages done because, A, he's my favorite driver, but B, he's got the best average finish amongst anybody here over the last 7 races. He's got 2 wins. He's got an average finish of 2.71 over the last 7 races here. So he's been sensational since the repave. 6 top fives, 605 laps led, and he's starting 8th. So a really nice starting position for the 18 car on Sunday. So I'm liking my odds with Kyle Busch. I know you probably are as well. We both saved 1 usage for him here. I still regret not using him at Texas in some respects here, but at the same time, I'll take that loss in the fantasy column. So anything to add for your Kyle Busch pick that I might have missed?
No, I just feel like he's at least the number 2 guy in terms of non-playoff guys going into this weekend. Maybe even the number 1 based off of the numbers, but I feel like you can't count out Kevin Harvick there. But yeah, non-championship 4 guy. So again, you're getting the full stage points there, and I feel pretty good about Kyle Busch at least being a top 10 threat the entire day, which means consistent stage points and a solid finishing position, which probably puts him over the likes of at least have, if not all, of the championship 4 guys. And again, when you look back to the results from last year in the championship 4 race, the guy who finished second in the race, Martin Truex Jr., who was a championship 4 guy, wouldn't have been in the top 5 best for fantasy points because he finished with 35, having finished second, and there were 4 other guys, and there were 5 total people who finished with more points. Obviously, the race winner, Kyle Busch, who won the championship with 40 points, but then also 4 other non-playoff drivers that, although they finished behind Truex, had garnered stage points, and because of that, finished with more points. So I feel like Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch are both kind of those guys that you can look at as, if not locks, as close to outpoint those championship 4 guys.
Yeah, forbidding anything happening on Sunday with wrecks or whatnot or mechanical failures, they should be able to outpoint some of the championship 4 in all likelihood. Those are the 2. Even if they were in the championship 4, I probably would play them as well. But with them not being in the championship 4 this season, which is a rare occurrence for having none of these guys in the championship 4, I don't think it's happened since the format's been introduced, where one of them actually hasn't. Since the playoff format has been introduced, the fact that neither of these guys are in the championship 4 at the same time is a remarkable thing. So
think back to the big 3 days.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, all three of them are out of the championship for this season. So Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick are definitely ones to keep your eye on this weekend. And speaking of the big three, I have a usage left on Martin Truex Jr., and you do not, sir. So that's unfortunate for the Truex fan sitting over here, as I'm going to take Martin Truex Jr. as my third pick this weekend. I went first here just because I know you don't have him, so that gives me a little bit more time to plan out my strategy for my remaining three picks. But Martin Truex Jr. has got some decent numbers here at Phoenix. Over the last 7 races, he's got an average finish of 10.43, 3 top fives, only 22 laps led, and he starts 13th. So I'm not expecting Truex to blow away the competition this weekend, but he's been in contention here or there. He had trouble here in the spring, so that's kind of a little bit concerning. But at the same time, I trust Martin Truex Jr.'s ability to not go 2 in a row here at Phoenix where he struggles. So I'm not expecting Truex to be maybe in the top 5 at the end of the day. I'm expecting a top 10 from Truex if all things go their way. A couple of stage points here and there would be great. Starting 13th, just outside the top 10, I imagine he can work his way in there and get in the middle of things at some point in time. So those are my top 3. The big 3 from 2018 are my first 3 picks that are outside the championship 4. I cannot believe I just said that, but yeah, those are my first 3 picks. So let me go into my deep dive here for my next 3 as you take your third.
Well, what I'll say is that I'm not as heartbroken about Truex not being in the championship race because Cole Pearn is not there anymore. So at least that's a saving grace silver lining that Cole Pearn isn't missing the championship for. His streak stays alive at least when he's atop the pit box. But you're using a guy that I don't have a usage on, so I'll use a guy that you don't have a usage on, and that's Ryan Blaney. Last year at Phoenix, he finished 3rd in both races. Earlier this year, we didn't get to see that true potential of the team because they crashed out on lap 65 and finished 37th. So I'm going to take a bit of a swing on this one, as I am with my next pick as well, where Ryan Blaney, he's got some good numbers specifically last year. I'm hoping for a bounce back for them, and just given Penske has 2 guys in the championship race as well, I feel like they'll be well suited going into this weekend as well. And I'm hoping that carries over to Ryan Blaney as well.
Man, you did not talk long enough.
Well, hey, you know what? You went first. You went back to back. I can go back to back because I got my number 4 guy who is also a non-playoff guy. If you want me to go with that, you want me to go with that? Okay.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a swing. I'm not gonna lie, because this guy, he's had 1 standout race at Phoenix, but since then he's had some issues, some mediocre to poor runs, and a couple of wrecks. But I've liked what they've shown since the playoffs started here.
Oh, I know who you're going with.
I've liked what they've shown since the playoffs started here. He's got a teammate in the championship 4, and I'm hoping that this team has kind of rebounded and they have a good run at Phoenix like they did back in 2016. And that is one Alex Bowman. Look, the numbers
Arizona native
do not suggest to put him in your lineup here. If you look at the recent results, 14th earlier this year. Last year, 23rd and 35th. The year before that, 30th and 13th. It's really just that one standout run at Phoenix back in 2016. But this is a team that's been really, really solid since these playoffs started. And this was a team that started hot, got cold really quickly after that. Took a while to figure things out, but once the playoffs started, they've found that gear again. And look, it's definitely a swing, but I kind of like Alex Bowman going into this weekend, as you mentioned there. Technically his home track as well, the Arizona native, going to the 48 next year, so it's his last race with the 88 number as well. Who knows? But I'm feeling some good things about Alex Bowman going into this weekend, so I'm going to put him in my lineup as my 4th non-championship 4 guy.
Damn, I hate that you caught that. That is so crappy. I remember 2016, the final laps of that one, and he got wrecked by Kenseth there on that restart, and he was the leader, and that was when he was filling in for Junior. And
dominant performance, really.
Dominant in that race. He was second to none. Nobody had anything for him until that late caution
194 laps led, and the next closest was 58 with Joey Logano.
Yeah, like it was not even close. And Logano went on to win that race. But Alex Bowman, man, that's a really great pick. Darn.
You still got 3 more to pick here, and you're already struggling.
Oh, Believe me, I am. I'm in the doghouse, man. I am screwed.
Well, what I will say is that you get to pick between any of the championship 4 guys to put in your lineup. So you're even more in a difficult place. I only have 3 to pick from because I obviously have max usage on Chase Elliott there. So I can't put Chase Elliott even if I wanted to.
Shoot, I'm doing the math in my head. You know what? I've already won fantasy on the year. Let's go on a little bit of a home run swing and see if it's see if Clint Bowyer is in my lineup in his final race. He's starting 9th. I like Boyer's averages. He ran well in the spring. He's run decently on this 750 horsepower package. Didn't do too great at Richmond. I will say that. Maybe a little bit disappointing in the fall race here in the playoffs, but I liked his speed at Loudon earlier this season as well. I think Boyer's got a decent shot here to get me some stage points in his final race. I think Boyer's going to go out swinging, and I hope that he gets me some nice stage points and a nice solid finish here to round out his Cup Series career. So
yeah, finished 5th at Phoenix earlier this year.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna take a little nice little Bowyer bunt, see if that goes through, and gets me a single.
I thought about putting Jimmie in the lineup instead of Alex Bowman for a second, just maybe hoping for some miracle magic in the final race.
If you had done Jimmie, I will say this: I would have matched Jimmie just to do that for fun.
Okay, that's
just
fair.
To put, but
that's fair.
the fact that you didn't, too bad, so sad. I'll go with Clint
technically
Bowyer.
I still could, but I'm definitely
just leave yourself with one guy. Just go with one guy.
A big swing. Alrighty, here we go.
Clint Bowyer is my 4th pick. So we've got 2 championship 4 guys, I imagine, here as the final 2. So this is basically 1 of 2 for our championship picks here, Kyle. It's quite a prediction here, but oh boy, I don't have my 2 picked yet. I don't know if you do. So go ahead with your first guy.
Okay,
the championship or anything.
I feel like just given I started the playoffs, having him as my eventual winner, that I got to stick with it and put him in my lineup here at the very least. He's got really, really good numbers here. Obviously, he won the Phoenix race to make the championship 4 last year in the playoffs. Denny Hamlin will be my first championship 4 guy in my lineup.
All right, that's great. It's a great pick. You can't go wrong with the championship.
You can't go wrong with
really.
the championship 4 guys.
He's got a 1 in 4 shot to win the race, so or win the championship. I mean, if he wins the race, that's just a bonus. But
I hope he does for the sake of my fantasy.
I'm not going to go with Hamlin in my fantasy lineup.
Ooh. Okay.
I just don't have a good feeling about the 11th car, so that takes him out of my championship contention as well. So I think Hamlin chokes once again. He's been terrible these playoffs. We'll talk about what they've done in the playoffs in a little bit here, but they've not shown the consistent speed that I thought they would. So I'm going to keep Hamlin out of my lineup. So that leaves me 3 guys left for 2 spots. I've got Logano, Keselowski, and Elliott. I'm going to go with, I think, the safest bet of them all. I'm going to go with Brad Keselowski as one of my guys this weekend. So he's been phenomenal on the 750 horsepower package this season. And not to forget, he wrecked here in the spring, and he came back to being contention for the win there late. So over the last 7 races here at Phoenix, he's got an average finish of 11.14. 2 top 5s, 129 laps led, and he starts third, the championship 4 starting in the top 4, obviously, with the formula. So Keselowski's starting third, and I like the 2 car this weekend. I think he was probably my safest bet for the championship 4 this weekend. So I'll go with the 2 car as my 5th pick, which leaves me 1 left. So who's your final pick for your fantasy of the season? This is it.
Yeah, my final pick for fantasy this season is Brad Keselowski. I feel really good about him going into this weekend as well. I feel like if he isn't winning the championship, he's going to be the number 2 guy there. You mentioned it all, but that team has just been so good with that higher horsepower, low downforce package. It is interesting going against the Phoenix race winner this season in Joey Logano, for me at least. But I just feel better about Keselowski and even Hamlin. So I'm going with those 2 as my championship 4 picks for my lineup. I feel like those 2 will be the 2 at the end of the race for me at least, and for my lineup. So I'm banking on those two.
Good Lord. I don't know what to do. I'm really stressed out here, man.
Logano or Elliott? Where are you going?
Logano or Elliott? So Logano obviously has had the most prep time out of anybody because he won at Kansas, and he has the most amount of time to put into this car. They haven't had to really focus the last 2 weekends on their setups or anything like that. They've been invested in this for a couple of weeks now, and they also won the spring Phoenix race. So that's a double whammy here for Joey Logano here this weekend. Could we be looking at him as a two-time champion come Sunday afternoon? And we've got Chase Elliott making his first final Championship 4 appearance, starting on pole on Sunday as well with by virtue of the win.
But stage points don't matter, so that doesn't even factor in as much.
No, it does not. But this is Chase Elliott's final or first Championship 4 appearance, like I said, and he ran exceptionally well in the spring before having a tire go flat. So he was probably the fastest car there in the spring. So that leaves me with Joey Logano and Chase Elliott. Joey Logano and Chase Elliott. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. I'm trying to not stall as much as I can here, but this is incredibly difficult.
It's a tough pick.
This is incredibly difficult.
Man, as we were talking about before the show, we feel that this year – more than most, where all 4 guys basically have the same odds of winning the championship going into the race.
There's no favorite.
Really good about all 4 guys, and maybe you could have Brad Keselowski as the favorite just because of the success on the higher horsepower package, but even then, it's super, super close. So Logano or Elliott, which way are we going here?
I'm going to go with my gut, okay? And my gut is telling me to go with Chase Elliott as my last pick for fantasy this season. Okay, so he's got an average finish over the last 7 races of 14.29, 2 top 5s. But the thing that really puts me over the top with him is that he's got momentum. The thing is, oh man, that's so difficult because the guy I'll get into it when we look at the preview, breaking it down each guy, but Chase Elliott has got some very good chances to win with the momentum, but at the same time, I don't know how much work they put into the Phoenix car for prep time or how much they've been able to do compared to Joey Logano. But on the the precaution and the side of safety here, I'm not going to go with the 2 Penske cars. I'm going to go with just a bit of a split here with Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski. So that's who I think is going to be the top 2 in the championship is what I'm saying. So that's incredibly tough decision to make, man. That was probably the toughest thing I've had to do all fantasy this season.
Started with the easiest pick and ended with arguably the hardest.
Good Lord. Tell me about it. That's an understatement. But before we end the fantasy, we've got some honorable mentions, and that's all the championship for whichever side you think you want to go on. So for myself, we don't have Joey Logano for either of us. So that's
he's the winner.
The one guy that has had the most prep time and the signs point to maybe him winning the championship probably the most. We have totally just missed that. So Joey Logano is definitely an honorable mention. On top of that, Eric Almirola was one I was considering as well with some decent numbers here. He's got the 4th best average finish among active drivers. Probably 3rd because you look at Cole Custer, got a good finish in the spring, but Almirola's got an average finish of 10.14 over the last 7 starts here. He's got 5 top 10s as well in that span, so solid numbers for Almirola here at Phoenix, but I just don't like the momentum that the 10 car has been on. They had a good run at Martinsville, don't get me wrong, and I think they had they didn't have a decent run at Texas, so just Martinsville there to kind of end the season here. They had that great mid-season surge, which put them in the playoffs comfortably. But since then, they've just not been up to par. So with a little bit of doubt, you could probably put Eric Almirola as one to look out for this weekend. Obviously, Clint Bowyer is one I said as well. Alex Bowman, like Kyle has in his lineup, along with Ryan Blaney. Kurt Busch is another one. He ran well in the spring as well. So he could be one to keep your eye out for this weekend. And then Ryan Newman has got some exceptional numbers here at Phoenix. I know he's had a terrible season since he's come back from that devastating crash in the Daytona 500. He didn't run, the spring race here due to the injuries that he suffered. So he hasn't raced at Phoenix this season, but with previous history, he's won a race here at Phoenix in the past too. So he's won 2 races here in the past at Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. So Ryan Newman could be a decent bet here to maybe upset, get a top 15 run kind of thing, but just be a little bit on the edge of Ryan Newman. But for my one stay away from, maybe for the final time we can get the jinx to work, Jimmie Johnson. Okay, it's not, if you want to play him, there's no harm in doing it. He's got decent numbers here in his career at Phoenix. It's been a little bit of a rough go of things at the end of his career here, as many tracks have been for the 48 car. But on one final thing, the jinx has paid off on multiple occasions in the stay away from column this season, most notably the Kyle Busch jinx I gave a couple of weeks ago at Texas. We have that clip up on our Instagram as well if you want to go check that out, at the green flag. And then also the Joey Logano jinx where he won at Kansas when I said stay away from him as well. So I had quite the stretch there where I thought
there's definitely more than that, because
Eric Jones at the Roval,
right.
He finished third there, but last weekend it didn't pay off, unfortunately. I thought that maybe it would work with Jimmie Johnson, so we'll try it again here this weekend. But he's definitely not a stay away from in all reality. He could probably play him this weekend if he wanted to, but just as a fun little thing to end the season, he's my only stay away from because it's the championship race. Who knows what's going to happen here at Phoenix in a couple of days' time. So that's it. That's my fantasy for the season. That's Kyle's fantasy for the season. It's been one heck of a journey.
One final recap of it going into the final race.
For sure.
Here, I guess.
We've got the same in terms of Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch for our non-playoff guys. And then for our championship 4 guys, we share the same pick in Brad Keselowski. And then for Kyle, he's got Ryan Blaney and Alex Bowman as his 2 other non-playoff guys. For myself, I've got Martin Truex Jr. with the extra usage, and then Clint Bowyer in his final race in the Cup Series, most likely. And then as to differentiate ourselves in the championship 4 side of things, I've got Chase Elliott. He has got Denny Hamlin. So that's the fantasy picks, man. It's crazy. I mean, I could have gone a total 50-50 split with the championship picks and not gone with Keselowski and just went with Logano just to see. We got a 100% chance of getting one of them right, at least between the two of us. But we've got that one little extra
which means that Logano's going to win it now.
Most likely. Yeah. You heard it here first. We're going to clip that up and be sure to send that out on Sunday night if we're wrong. But any final thoughts on fantasy, Kyle, before we move into the championship finale breakdown?
It's been a tough first season for the Cushman roster. We're looking to finish the season strong and rebuild over the offseason, looking forward to a championship run next year.
All right. That's great words there from the runner-up in fantasy this season. So that's an understatement as well. So I will see if he can come back next season with a stronger performance. But I'm very happy to have taken the rightful place as fantasy champion for, I guess, half of the season, because when we started the show up, I'll take it nonetheless. So that's it. That's the fantasy preview for the final time this season. We'll be back in Daytona in a couple months' time to break that all down for you there, which is going to be another crapshoot. So don't trust us on the Daytona ones, especially
except
myself.
For me,
I've not
with
won
the randomizer.
Especially for the super speedway tracks. I've not won that against Kyle this season. But nonetheless, it's been a lot of fun with that side of things this season. Sure. We've been posting it on Instagram and everything like that, our breakdowns. So what a ride it's been. And we've got one more element of this show to go, Kyle. We've got our championship kind of preview here and our predictions. So without further ado, how do you want to go about this? Do you want to just look at each guy kind of thing?
Let's go chronological. Let's go trucks, Xfinity, in that Cup.
All right, that makes sense. So going into this weekend, we've got Brett Moffitt, Sheldon Creed, Zane Smith, and Grant Enfinger for the Truck Series side of things. Their race is on Friday night at Phoenix on FS1, I believe, and it's going to be a crazy finale, I'm sure, for the Truck Series, as it always is. It's just going to be incredible here this weekend. So, obviously, Grant Enfinger with the walk-off win at Martinsville last Friday night, I guess it was. So they've got a week here to prep. And with Enfinger, he led in, I think it was 6 races this season, and he won 4 of them, I think is the stat that I saw. So he's been pretty good when he's had the opportunity and he's had a good truck on the line. So it comes down to this: on 8 p.m. Eastern on FS1 on November 6th on Friday night, the Truck Series takes the action with 3 GMS trucks and 1 Thor Sport truck. We both got our championship predictions wrong with coming into this round across for all 3 series. So let's see if we can get the championship prediction right. Unlike last season, if you listened to our show then, we miraculously got all 3 series wrong. between the two of us. We picked different guys for each series, and we got them all wrong.
We missed them all.
We missed them all. As a Kyle Busch fan last season, I didn't even pick him to win the freaking championship. That's how disappointing of it was going into that finale, but he proved me wrong.
I don't remember all of our championship picks from last year. I got to go back and open up the vault again.
I think you went with Denny Hamlin, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that.
I think so as well.
No, I went with Hamlin. I think you went with Truex. I went with Hamlin because I liked his momentum at the end of the season. I know I picked Hamlin.
Something like that. I don't know. I'll look back at it and maybe post a little flashback or something.
The Xfinity series we got wrong as well with
we missed big time on trucks.
And I don't think anybody got right on trucks with Matt Crafton being the upset champion last season.
Didn't even
winning a race.
Damn race.
So we'll see what happens this season. That's not going to happen in any series for this championship finale weekend. So that kind of sets the stage here, Kyle, for an entertaining championship weekend. So do you want to go in order and how we're thinking of how it's going to break down, or do you want to look at each guy's kind of season so far?
Let's do it like 4-1 and
okay.
Like rank where we think that they'll go, and then we can kind of hit on each guy as we go along.
Okay.
So, let's start with the trucks here. And my number 4 guy, and GMS has just been so good this year. And you look at Brett Moffitt and Zane Smith, which we'll get to in a second here, I assume. I like both of those guys quite a bit at Phoenix. Grant Enfinger's the one guy that you can look at and go, okay, of the 4 guys in the Truck Series Championship 4, this is probably the one guy that maybe doesn't deserve it as much on full season performance. And when they're on, they're definitely on. As you mentioned there, in the 6 races that they've led in this year, they've won 4 of them. So when they're on, they're basically winning the race, essentially. That being said, I feel like GMS is just so strong suited this weekend that I feel like Enfinger and ThorSport there are the underdog going into this championship race tomorrow night. And so for me, I will have Grant Enfinger as my longest shot in the Truck Series to win the championship.
I follow the same line of thinking. I just don't see the consistency enough and on the one-off basis. And he put all that effort into last weekend. I don't know if he's going to have enough this weekend with the limited prep time as well. And they don't run the Truck Series in the spring here as well. So they don't have anything to go off of, as we talked about prior to recording the show. So we both didn't realize that really, but they've, this is the series that has this is the series that has the one-off weekend, for the championship this weekend. So it's an interesting kind of, scheduling, I guess, for NASCAR in that respect. They don't really have anything to go off of, just last year's notes. So I think Grant Enfinger is just going to be outmatched by GMS. I could definitely see one of the GMS guys finishing behind him, but I don't think Enfinger is going to be in the top 2 of those of the championship battle. It's going to be between 2 GMS trucks, and in my opinion, for the championship, whether Enfinger goes up there and kind of get into the mix of things, and it's to be determined. Excuse me. So I don't really see anything from Enfinger. I don't see him as a championship winner this season, but I thought the same thing as Matt Crafton last season. So we'll see if ThorSport can kind of upset the championship party 2 years in a row. But for right now, I've got Enfinger 3rd. Yeah.
Enfinger 3rd?
Oh, 4th, sorry.
Okay, I was going to say, whoa. That's a curveball there.
I was looking at my 3rd guy, that's why.
But yeah, when we get into the GMS trucks here, I think it gets a lot more wide open because I feel like all 3 of these guys are pretty close. But I feel like Sheldon Creed is probably going to be my 3rd guy here. And that's kind of tough to say because kind of like with the Cup Series here and how tight those 4 are, I feel pretty similar about how tight these 3 GMS guys are. The one thing that does give me a little bit of pause here is that Zane Smith hasn't been to Phoenix in a truck yet, which is an interesting little tidbit. He's been there in Xfinity, he's been there in ARCA, but hasn't been there in trucks. Maybe that will impact his performance. But then again, you look at his performance at Martinsville, and it was the first time he went there and looked really good there. So that being said, I'm going to have Sheldon Creed as my number 3 guy here at Phoenix. And it's kind of painful to do so. I went bold and said that he wouldn't make the championship 4. That one came back to bite me pretty good. He showed me up big time over the last 3 races. He may well do it again, but I just feel better about both Moffitt and Smith going into Phoenix.
Fair enough, but I'm going to disagree with you on this one.
Yes.
I don't have Sheldon Creed as my second guy. Or it's my third. Jesus, what is wrong with me
Numbers
here?
are hard.
It is very difficult. I've got Zane Smith as my third guy.
Yes.
I just think he's a rookie in the Truck Series here. It's just a lot to ask going into his first championship final appearance, and having not been in this series at this track before, it's a bit of a tough one to try and predict him being in the top two. He's proved me wrong at Martinsville in terms of being as well as he did. I didn't think he would fall out of the championship 4 race by any means, but he surprised me when you see some guys when they go to a track for the first time, they kind of struggle. And with no practice this weekend, I still can't believe they're not doing any practice for any series in their one-off final championship weekend here. But nonetheless, they're going to do that. So it's just a lot to ask of Zane Smith to go into the finale here and go up there and contend for the championship. I think he'll be in the mix of things, top 5, top 7 kind of truck. But besides that, I don't know if he's just got enough to deal with the experience of Moffitt specifically and the speed that Sheldon Creed has showed throughout the entire season. So I've got Zane Smith as my third guy for the championship, 4, Grant Enfinger 4th, just to clear that up, make that all clear. But yeah, those are my last 2 right
So from here, do we want to say our championship pick? Or do we want to go number 2 and then get to
we'll do championship pick here.
Okay, and then we'll circle back around to our number 2 guy. So for me, my championship pick, he's been good at Phoenix in the trucks. He's been good all season long. He leads the season-long points right now. He doesn't know what he's doing for 2021 yet. But that being said, I feel like he's going to end up in a competitive ride, at least in the Truck Series, if not getting the bump up to Xfinity. Brett Moffitt is my 2020 Truck Series champion, winning his first championship with GMS, getting his second Truck Series championship overall. I just feel like he's the veteran of the 3 GMS guys that I feel like are the favorites going into the weekend, just given how good GMS has been all season long. I feel like he's got the experience winning the championship in the past. So all those factors put all together, I feel like Brett Moffitt is going to win his second Truck Series championship tomorrow night.
I agree. I have Brett Moffitt as my championship pick as well. I tend not to choose the same guy, but for championships, I'll make the exception here. I like Brett Moffitt a lot this weekend. I think just up against this kind of crop of guys that is in this championship battle, I think Moffitt has to go in here as the favorite. Plus, he's running a Jimmie Johnson throwback truck.
On. It looks so good.
Hello. Running the same paint scheme that he ran for the Darlington throwback once again here, obviously with Jimmie Johnson's final weekend. So I would love to see that thing in the winner's circle. If he wins the race, that's even better. But I just want to see that thing in front of the championship stage. At least we can see maybe one Jimmie Johnson thing in front of victory lane or holding up a trophy this weekend. So I'm hoping that Brett Moffitt gets it done, and I really like his odds. As Kyle said, regular season kind of leader right now.
Yeah,
overall
second
points.
in regular season points, season-long points. Barely has a lead over Austin Hill by, I believe, 4 points going to this race.
It's a shame that Austin Hill's not in this. It would have been
that would definitely make things a lot more interesting.
If Austin Hill was in this, he would have been my championship pick. I'll just say that straight out. I would have picked him to win the championship.
Just imagine he goes out and wins Phoenix, and in back-to-back years, he wins the final race of the season, not running for the championship. Oh,
yeah, it's definitely within the realm of possibility. I wouldn't look too far past that. So, yeah, I've got the same championship pick here as Kyle with Brett Moffitt. And then that means for myself, I've got Sheldon Creed finishing second in the championship with Zane Smith for yourself finishing second. So any reason why you thought Zane Smith is not quite there to challenge Brett Moffitt maybe this weekend?
Yeah, for me, it's just the experience. Moffitt's been there, done that in the final race with the pressure on. Zane Smith hasn't done that yet, but even with the lack of experience, I feel good about Zane Smith going into this weekend because, and look, it's obviously not great putting a lot of faith in just one race based off of one race, but last year, Zane Smith ran the number 8 Junior Motorsports car in the Xfinity Series in the playoff race at Phoenix, the second last race of the season, and he finished 5th. The only people to finish ahead of him were Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick, and John Hunter Nemechek, which means that he finished ahead of the likes of Austin Cindric, Justin Haley, Chase Briscoe, Noah Gragson, Brandon Jones, and Christopher Bell. That race had some issues, so I'll count him to a lesser extent, but on pace alone, he beat some of those names that are running for the championship this season at Phoenix in the Xfinity series. So I got to say, I like his chances going into this weekend, even though he doesn't have the experience. I think that he's my number 2 guy going into this weekend, just Moffitt that little bit better.
Yeah, I think for myself with Creed finishing second, it's just he can be very aggressive and he can maybe step over that edge. But I think he's still going to be there. I just don't know if he has just enough. I mean, I love the speed that he showed kind of at Gateway, a little bit of a similar kind of driving technique, I'd say, in terms of the slower corners and letting the car roll and then just kind of powering off. So I think there's something to be had about that. But I think Creed's going to just fall short in his bid for his first Truck Series title, but we could be entirely wrong. Any of these guys can go out there and win it this weekend, to be honest. But Brett Moffitt is, I think, probably amongst most people, probably the favorite going into this weekend. But the GMS trio there is no joke. So any of those 3 could win it, along with Grant Enfinger. We can't forget about him with his walk-off win at Martinsville. He's got some momentum going into this weekend. We'll see if that pays off. So any final thoughts going into tomorrow night, which is crazy to say? We're crowning our first champion of 2020 on the NASCAR side of things tomorrow night.
All I have to say is don't sleep on the Truck Series. It's been amazing entertainment all season long. We don't legally get to watch it in Canada, so you got to find a way around it. But you know what? Okay, that's my campaign here. Canada, TSN, get the Truck Series so we don't have to go on random streaming sites to try and watch it, please. Please, can we maybe work that out? But no, that being said, if you're in the States, just watch it on FS1. If you're in Canada, find a way to watch it because it's going to be amazing entertainment. The Truck Series has been great all season long, and we've got 4 legitimate contenders here, 3 specifically with GMS that are going to look to contend. But last year, ThorSport went out and stole the championship as well with Matt Crafton. They could do it just again with Grant Enfinger this year as well.
Yeah, it's anybody's game going into the Truck Series race.
Yeah,
I mean,
with any of these, really.
I would not be surprised if one of them wrecks out tomorrow night, just based off of contact or something happens.
There's a lot of people that don't like each other in the Truck Series.
This is their last shot for a lot of people to get back at some. So we'll see if the championship 4 guys get caught up in somebody else's mess or if it's one that they create of their own. So it's going to be a lot of fun. These truckers really go at it. And I don't expect anything less tomorrow night. So we've got Brett Moffitt across the board for both of us as our championship pick for the 2020 Truck Series season. So with that, we move on to the Xfinity Series.
Yes,
one tier up on to the Saturday race at Phoenix as well. We've got Chase Briscoe, Justin Allgaier, Austin Cindric, and Justin Haley in the championship 4. The surprise probably being there, Justin Haley. When you look at the likes of Ross Chastain, Noah Gragson, even Brandon Jones outside of that championship 4 in 2020. But Haley's done enough to skate through, and I think we start with him, Kyle. I imagine he's probably your 4th guy for the championship. He's mine for sure. I don't think he can really compete with these other 3 this weekend. I haven't seen enough from him on non-super speedway tracks and some other kinds of tracks as well. Something like this I don't think fits Haley's driving style per se, but he did well at Richmond, if I'm not mistaken, earlier this season for the Xfinity Series. So I could be wrong in that respect, but when I look at the competition he's going up against, I think all 3 of these guys could win the championship against him. So I have Justin Haley 4th. I imagine you have the same.
Yeah, he's the longest shot for me as well. He was good in the playoff race at Phoenix last year, finished 7th ahead of Chase Briscoe. But that being said, I just feel like both Colleague and Justin Haley are that little bit step behind the rest of those 3 guys, specifically at Phoenix. If it was at a different track, then maybe I would have Haley ahead of somebody like Justin Allgaier. But given it is Phoenix and it's a track that suits Justin Allgaier as well as both Briscoe and Cindric, just because of the season-long success they've had everywhere, Justin Haley's got to be the longest shot to win the championship. That being said, with Briscoe, Cindric, Allgaier probably going to be running all next to each other, anything can happen. And if Haley's maybe a spot or 2 behind those guys, who knows what can happen if there's some kind of contact or something where Justin Haley can come through and steal the win. But yeah, similar to you, I like Justin Haley quite a bit. But that being said, I haven't seen enough from non-super speedway races to put him up into that top 3.
One thing I will say about Haley is that he can probably be the most aggressive of the 4 this weekend because he's got really nothing to lose. So I think in terms of pit strategy or a late call, if they want to gamble and lose
they
that
might
track
have to try
position and try
stuff,
and try and get some fresh tires compared to their competition, who are most likely going to be out front battling for the win, maybe they can try and sneak something and get in position where they can capitalize on a couple of late restarts if it does come down to that. But for myself, Haley's fourth, and for you as well, it's fourth. So we move on to third place here, Kyle. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of these guys in terms of who's left. I mean, you've got the two favorites most likely in Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric for season long, but you can't forget about Justin Allgaier's success on these kinds of tracks as well. So who do you have as finishing third in the championship race at Phoenix?
This one pains me to say because as we stand today, he currently leads the season-long points total. But third for me is Austin Cindric. I just feel like at Phoenix, it's a track that obviously we've seen Justin Allgaier be so good at in the past, but I feel like it suits Chase Briscoe a little bit more than it does Cindric. And that being said, I think that all three of those guys are going to be super close this upcoming weekend. But I think Cindric is just going to be that number 3 guy out of that bunch.
I agree. I can't believe it. I didn't think that you would probably have him third, but you do. I have him third. Cindric has just been frustrating at times this season where I think he's going to be good. And then he had that incredible stretch of 5 or 6 Xfinity Series wins. Like, it was just remarkable. But then since then, it hasn't been the exact same level of success. And when I look at that stretch that he had this season, it was phenomenal. But at the same time, when you look at the tracks, he's so good on the road courses. And then that Kentucky duo, it just kind of makes it look maybe greater than what it is. But at the same time, he's the season-long points champion right now. And he's been super consistent. He's had more top 10s than Chase Briscoe, amazingly, which is I can't believe that when it comes down to that. But he does. He has 25 top 10s this season, 25 top 10s, 18 top 5s compared to Briscoe's 16 and 21 respectively. So Briscoe's got more laps led, but Cindric's just been super consistent this season. So it's just going to come down to that little bit, and I don't know if Cindric has had enough pace on these kinds of tracks is similar to Haley in some respects to battle against Allgaier, who's the veteran of the series, and Briscoe, who's obviously going up the Cup Series next season. So I have Cindric as third as well. So that leaves with the same duo with Justin Allgaier and Chase Briscoe remaining for both of us. Who is your championship winner for the Xfinity Series in 2020?
I said it before the playoffs started. I'm sticking with it. I'm going to say Chase Briscoe gets it done at Phoenix. Look, Justin Allgaier's got great numbers at Phoenix. He's the veteran of this championship 4, but Chase Briscoe has just been otherworldly in terms of the race victories this season in the Xfinity Series, and I think he caps it off with a victory at Phoenix this weekend. He's going up to the 14 car next season with SHR. When that team is on their game, they're borderline untouchable. We've seen them a couple times in these playoffs put up the max 60 points in a race weekend, getting the stage wins and the race victory. While I don't think that we'll see that level of dominance, I think that just given how likely it was that this team was going to be in the championship race and locking it up in the first week, they've been able to prepare the longest. I think it's going to be damn tough to beat Chase Briscoe this weekend. So he is my Xfinity Series champion for 2020.
I do not have Chase Briscoe as my champion for 2020. I am sticking to my guns when the playoffs started.
I like it. Sticking to our guns.
I'm going with Justin Allgaier. I feel like I couldn't back out at this point in time. I just wanted to stick with my initial prediction. He's run so well here in his career. It's incredible. I mean, there's I don't really think anybody comes close in terms of their performance at this track with who he's facing, and I don't know if he necessarily has the momentum, but he's been right there. I think kind of the forgotten of the trio with Cindric and Briscoe this season. He's been pretty damn good. He's got 932 laps led, but the number that sticks out for Allgaier this season in terms of that's probably separated or brought him back from those two is the 8 DNFs. And that's a lot for a guy that's in the championship 4. But at the same time, when he's not been wrecking and not finishing the races, he's been basically top 5 material. So he's got 18 top 10s, 10 top 5s. So not the greatest numbers in the world there, but 3 wins is nothing to be shy about. And he won the Richmond races, both of them. So that's huge for Justin Allgaier with a very similar kind of package here with Phoenix. So I'm thinking that they're going to correlate in terms of speed, and I like the 7 car this weekend. So that means Chase Briscoe, once again, the guy that goes into here, probably the favorite amongst the championship 4 for myself for like the 3rd year in a row here. I thought Christopher Bell the last 2 seasons, and he had had the most wins, and it seemed like it was destined for him. He didn't follow through, so I'm going to go away from that prediction that I've done the past 2 seasons and go with maybe a bit of an underdog here in Justin Allgaier and upset the favorite in Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that pick. And, of course, Justin Allgaier won the playoff race at Phoenix last year. But something that's interesting to me is the Xfinity Series did go to Phoenix earlier this year. And of the championship 4 guys, only one of them finished inside the top 5, which is kind of remarkable to say. Looking back at that race, of course, that was the race that Brandon Jones went out and beat Kyle Busch. I'm sure you remember that fondly. But it went Brandon Jones, Harrison Burton, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, and finishing 5th, Justin Haley. So Justin Haley maybe might be the surprising guy this weekend, but finishing 6th in that race was Chase Briscoe as well. Austin Cindric 8th, and then Allgaier, I believe, had some issues and finished 13th. So going to be very interesting to see that Xfinity Championship race. I think it does come down.
Don't let Haley win this, man. It cannot happen. I'm sorry.
I think it comes down to Briscoe, Allgaier, Cindric as well. And seeing those 3 battle it out for the championship is going to be great. Obviously, Briscoe running in the Xfinity Series full-time for the final time, going up to SHR next year. Justin Allgaier looking to win his first Xfinity championship for Junior Motorsports, and then Austin Cindric going to return to Penske as well. So going into next year, looking to win that championship this year and cement himself as the favorite going into next year.
Yeah, this is not Cindric's last shot. This is Briscoe's last shot. I don't know if Allgaier will have plenty more chances at this, most likely in the Xfinity Series.
You would imagine.
And Haley's going to have another shot next season as well. So this is Briscoe's championship. He has to win it if he wants to get that top echelon kind of status and that top prospect, maybe asterisk next to his name. But for right now, I'm going with Allgaier. He's going with Briscoe. So we have Justin Allgaier as the champion for my side of things, and Chase Briscoe for Kyle's, and Brett Moffitt for the Truck Series for both of us. So that comes down now, Kyle, to the big one on Sunday. Thankfully, there's no racing this weekend.
This one's so tough.
We can just focus on the Cup Series, and boy, oh boy, am I ever confused on what to do here. I don't know what order I'm going to do this in as we speak. But I think we just take a look at all 4 guys before we give our predictions, because I've just got a couple of things I want to
let's talk about all 4, and then we'll rank them.
Exactly. So I think we start off with the guy that's had the most wins. We'll go kind of in that, kind of order. So we'll start off with Denny Hamlin here. He's got 35 starts this season, 7 wins, 1 coming in the playoffs at Talladega, with the infamous Talladega one that we definitely have some scrutiny over the decision on that one. But
hey, I got the fantasy win. That's all I care about.
We digress. 17 top 5s, 20 top 10s, 1,083 laps led. He's had a rough playoffs, only 2 top 10s in these playoffs so far, which is pretty remarkable. So he's just, I kind of predicted that coming into the playoffs that Hamlin wouldn't be that great. But I didn't think he'd be as bad as he has been. So that's maybe a little bit nerving, especially this past weekend at Martinsville. After he fell back through the pack, he never really regained that after that penalty or not the penalty, but having to come back down with the loose lug nuts. So he's also struggled the most amongst the championship 4 on the 750 low downforce package this season, but he's also using a brand new car this weekend as well. So maybe they've learned some things throughout this package this season, and they feel like they've got a good piece behind them. But coming into a track and having no practice with a brand new car is a bit of a risky move by the 11 team. We'll see if it pays off for him. So Denny Hamlin, Kyle, he was definitely a championship favorite when the playoffs started. You could look at Kevin Harvick or himself, but as the last 10 weeks have progressed, or the last 9 weeks, have progressed, maybe that favoritism towards Hamlin winning the championship has kind of teetered off a little bit.
Yeah, I would definitely say it has, and it's because of the lack of performance in these playoffs. Only winning the race at the Super Speedway is not indicative of success in the championship race by any means. So, I'm definitely concerned about Denny Hamlin going into this race. That being said, Last year is an interesting marker for me because he had the pressure going into that Phoenix race he needed essentially to win the race, to make it through to the championship race. And he did exactly that. Now, at the championship race, they had some issues, of course, which have been well documented, that cost themselves from the chance at winning the championship. But at Phoenix, in that pressure situation, they got through last year. It's going to be interesting to see if they can do that again this year round, just with the title on the line rather than a shot at the title on the line. But yeah, if you're looking at recent numbers as well, Denny Hamlin's probably got the best as you look across these championship 4 drivers. Earlier this year, a bit weaker, 20th place finish, but had some issues at Phoenix. But then last year, of course, the win in the playoff race, 5th earlier in the year. So Denny Hamlin, although they may not have the same momentum going into the championship race as one of the favorites may have, I think the performance at Phoenix still should propel them up the lineup.
I mean, I follow a similar line of thinking there in terms of what my thoughts are going towards Hamlin this weekend. It's so tough to kind of bet against a guy that's been so dominant this season on multiple occasions, but at the same time,
I did that
feel
last week for Kevin Harvick and it didn't pay off. So
it's just, I feel like in some respects, people are going to underlook Hamlin's performance during the playoffs and then kind of write him off a little bit going into this weekend. But when I look at like the season as a whole, it's so difficult to bet against the 11 car and what they've done. And, he's definitely had experience in the championship race. This is his 3rd championship finale, a championship 4 appearance. So he's been here before and he has failed to do so in the past couple of times that he's attempted this. And will he go down as one of the greatest drivers of all time to never win a championship? He can change that on Sunday afternoon. So we'll see what Hamlin does. And I think we move on here to, I guess last week's winner. We'll go on to Chase Elliott for this next one here. 35 starts this season, 4 wins. I couldn't believe it when I read that, but 2 road course with the Daytona road course, along with the Roval, and then obviously this past weekend at Martinsville. And then his other one was, oh shoot, what am I forgetting here?
Where was it? Oh my goodness, where was it?
What the heck?
Oh, this is a tough look. This is a tough look.
This is rough.
He didn't. Where did Chase Elliott first win the season? Oh, Charlotte, the second.
Oh yeah,
race.
the second Charlotte race. No one remembers that race. After
it was on a Wednesday or something.
Right? Yeah, it was the weekday race after the Coke 600. They came back
when they should have won both.
After he blew the 600.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So that's his 4 wins this season. So 1.5 miles, 2 road courses, and then a short track win this season for Chase Elliott. He's got 14 top 5s, 21 top 10s. 1,094 laps led, so that's a very impressive total there. He's actually ahead of Denny Hamlin in terms of laps led this season, if you can believe it. And this is his first championship 4 appearance. Potentially was the fastest car in the spring here. He didn't get the result he ultimately wanted because of the flat tire, like I mentioned earlier in the show, but he had a really fast car from the get-go in the spring. So Chase Elliott could be someone to watch out for this weekend. Who knows how much time they put into this Phoenix car for this upcoming weekend, but if they have spent some time on it, momentum is definitely on the 19 car side, Kyle.
The momentum is the big thing here. And Chase Elliott's been good in the past at Phoenix as well. The numbers might be a little bit deceiving in averages just because there has been a couple really poor finishes in there because of wrecks and whatnot. You look at last year's playoff race as the big one there, finishing 39th. That really brings down that average. But earlier this year, had speed better than 7th place. You look in the past, and the 2 big ones that stand out is the playoff race in 2017, where he finished 2nd, and then the spring race the following year in 2018 when he finished 3rd. This is a guy that, when he's on at Phoenix, is one of the favorites to win the race, and you would have to imagine that he'll be up there in that conversation this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. It's he's going to be one to watch. His first championship 4 appearance, and what a story it would be for a Hendrick Motorsports teammate to win the championship in Jimmie Johnson's final race. So that would be a pretty cool thing to see as well. So we move on here to the 3rd guy in the championship 4, and that is Brad Keselowski. One of the most consistent drivers, I'd say, this season, week in and week out. He's got 35 starts, obviously, this season, 4 wins, 12 top 5s, 23 top 10s. 963 laps led. and he has run exceptional on the 750 horsepower package this season. He won Loudon, he won Bristol, and he won Richmond in a very similar fashion. So these tracks definitely kind of correlate to Phoenix in some respects here. And if Keselowski wins the championship, this is a fun little stat here. I have like this poster in my room. You can't see it at all, but I've got the champions of every single year kind of thing. Up to 2016 was the last one. It's like the Moog or whatever the chassis parts kind of sponsor is. And I looked at it the other day and I didn't know the stat then, but they had Terry Labonte as one championship, and then it was 14 years, if I'm not mistaken, 12 years, excuse me, since he next won the championship in the 5-car for Hendrick Motorsports. Keselowski, if he wins the championship, it will be the second longest gap in NASCAR history between championships with 8 seasons. So winning in 2012, if he wins this season, that would be the second longest gap in NASCAR history, 4 years behind Terry Labonte's record. So I looked at that poster and I was like, man, it was a long time between Terry Labonte's championships, and then that stat kind of came out a day or two later.
That's interesting.
So it's an interesting one. Saw it on NASCAR Reddit, so credit to them for that stat there.
NASCAR Reddit's amazing.
NASCAR Reddit is incredible. So Keselowski goes into this weekend as maybe the championship favorite based off of the body of work this season, and he's going out there to try and win a second championship in his career.
Yeah, and he might be the favorite going into the weekend because of the success on the 750 horsepower low downforce package. But if you look at some of the recent numbers at Phoenix, they aren't as glowing as some of the others. You look at an 11th place finish earlier this year, and then last year, 10th and 19th. You have to go back to the playoff race in 2018 for the last top 5 finish there when they finished second. So
who did he finish second to?
I would assume Kyle Busch.
He did.
Kyle Busch.
Sorry.
My guy. It's okay. You get one last race to do it. I'll give it to you. But no, Keselowski's an interesting one because of that discrepancy between the success this year with the package and these last couple of races with this track. And is that going to mean that maybe they underperform the expectations going into the weekend? Or does it mean that they buck the trend of recent Phoenix races because of the success with the package? We don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out this weekend. But given the success with the package this year, I feel like Keselowski's got to be, if not the favorite, probably number 2 on most people's list.
Yeah, I follow a similar line of thinking there as well. So
I mean, he is definitely one to watch in the championship 4 that we both share in our fantasy lineup. So that does make sense.
Yeah, we definitely like Brad Keselowski this weekend. So that leaves us with our final championship 4 contender, and that is one Joey Logano. He's got 35 starts this season, 3 wins, 2 of them coming before the pandemic break, Phoenix being the last race before the pandemic hit, the pandemic break hit. And then he didn't win again until the round of 8 opener at Kansas. So I think that played a part of my decision as well with the fantasy as well. He won only 3 races this season and has won once since the pandemic break, albeit he's got a great time period here to prep that car. But I don't know if I've seen enough from Logano this season to maybe put him over the edge, and that's probably why I didn't put him in my fantasy lineup. I imagine it's something a little bit similar for yourself. So he's got 11 top 5s this season, 20 top 10s, 814 laps led, so the least of the championship 4 contenders on that stat line. And but he still has had the most prep time, like I've talked about. He's got a decent average finish on the 750 horsepower package this season. And also a little bit of an interesting stat here for Joey Logano in 2 things here. If Joey Logano wins the championship, it will be the first time since 1957 that Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR have had the same 3 championships crowned in 2 separate seasons. We're anticipating Lewis Hamilton to win the championship on the Formula One side of things.
Wow.
Back in 2018. Obviously,
look at you breaking out the vault.
NASCAR Reddit, man. I'm telling you.
But that's a good one.
So that would be a very interesting one, and we all remember the 2018 championship with the big 3 and me. And that was Don't remind me. He was in there for myself too. I was disappointed just as much as you were. Yeah, but
Truex
we won't talk about that. All right. So that is just a forgotten championship, in my opinion. So no one counts that one. So Logano's still looking for his first champ. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So it's an incredible stat there in terms of having that would be the same thing in 2 separate seasons since 1957. That hasn't occurred. And then I can't believe that that's a thing. Like, that's a crazy stat line in itself. And then also, since 2016, the winner of the first race in the round of 8 in even number years has gone on to win the championship, with Jimmie Johnson in 2016, Logano in 2018. Can he replicate that in 2020? Harvick won the round of 8 finale in 2014 when this playoff format was introduced at Phoenix in that walk-off win before he won the championship there at Homestead, Miami in 2014. So it follows that trend potentially here if Logano can go here and win the even number of years. But the championship in terms of the 1957 Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR, all of the three motorsports that we usually talk about on the show, kind of culminate into this stat line here. So Logano's got maybe some stats on his side in terms of history here, but he's also the spring race winner of the Phoenix race here. We can't forget that. So even though he has won 3 races this season, one of them comes at the track that the championship race is being held. So it's credible to think that Joey Logano has a shot at this championship and Kevin Harvick doesn't, when you look at that one spot that it came down to at Kansas and not being able to pass the 22 car. That was Harvick. So what are you thinking here with Joey Logano here for championship weekend, Kyle?
Yeah, he's maybe the biggest wild card for me, just because, as you mentioned there, post-pandemic, they were not the same team. 2 early season wins, but that win at Phoenix is very interesting. And they just weren't that same race-winning team after they came back from the COVID break. That being said, they have had the longest time to work on the car, knowing that they'll be in the championship race. They won earlier this year, so that's a very, very interesting combination going into this race. They're also the only team to have a teammate in the championship for there with Brad Keselowski, so interesting to see how that will play into things as well. But yeah, Penske has been strong on the 750 package, Keselowski more so than Logano, but Logano has the win at Phoenix, whereas Keselowski has some worse overall numbers at Phoenix. So it's a very interesting group of 4 drivers we have going into this championship race. And really, you could say any of these guys wins the championship, and I will go, yep. Like, all of these guys have such close odds going into this race. It really is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I wonder what the odds are for this weekend and how they're breaking it down.
I'll pull up Betway real quick and see what they've
I imagine Hamlin will probably be the lowest in terms of favorite just because of the season.
You think so?
I believe Hamlin's going to be or like the best odds, in my opinion. Is going to have here. But there's definitely a lot to be.
Cup Series Championship. So this is, it's basically pick 'em across all of them. Let me just set it to the correct. Actually, I'll just leave it as is. So right now, Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin are tied as championship favorites. You bet $1, you win 3.4 for both Elliott and Hamlin. And then Keselowski and Logano have the same odds as well at you bet $1 and you win 3.75. So it's super, super close. It's basically pick 'em across all of it, which is pretty remarkable, I got to say, how close the odds are there.
It just kind of even emphasizes that fact even more, that there's no real favorite going into this weekend. If Kevin Harvick's a part of this championship 4, you probably see him with the best odds to win it. But right now, this is anybody's championship to win. It's just who wants to go out there and take it. So with looking at those 4 guys, Kyle, I think we kind of give our predictions now.
Yes.
This is it. The final predictions of the season. We'll give our winner picks. If you first off, do you think the champion will win the race? Do you think that is going to happen this weekend, or can someone spoil that trend for the first time since 2014?
I definitely think that of the recent races, I think that of the recent championship races, this is probably the best odds of somebody winning it that isn't in the championship 4. But that being said, I do think that somebody in the championship 4 will win this race.
I agree. I have the championship 4. So I think we're getting a 40-point winner here. Whoever that is, we'll see on Sunday. So I think we go into it. The bottom guy in our championship 4, who do we have finishing 4th in Phoenix amongst the 4 drivers going for the championship? I think I have mine kind of locked in right now. But
okay, you go ahead then.
Okay. It's going to come as a shock as my 4th guy. The guy who's won the most races amongst anybody in the championship 4. I'm going on a bit of an oddball here, bit of a a bit of a risky one. I think Denny Hamlin's going to finish fourth amongst the four guys racing for the championship. I don't know what it is. I could be entirely wrong, and he could finish first here, man. Like, I just think when I look at the body of work on this kind of package this season and the trend of the season, I don't like the way it's going. And he said it in his post-race interviews that he wishes he was going head-to-head with Harvick. Well, he can't look at Harvick anymore. He's got three other guys he has to battle up against, and he can't worry about what Kevin Harvick does on Sunday. So I'm going with Denny Hamlin, probably your pick to win the championship when you started the playoffs here. I obviously had Harvick to win the championship, but I have Denny Hamlin finishing fourth.
Wow.
So, yeah, bit of a big one there.
Well, that just goes to show how crazy that this championship four is and how close it is. Because one of the guys that I had as a championship winner going into the playoffs, you have as the fourth best odds of winning the championship, or as your guy that you think will finish last. And it's crazy here. I do not have Hamlin as my number four guy. Who I do have as my number four guy is one Chase Elliott. And it kind of pains me to say so, because I do think that this team will show a lot of speed at Phoenix, but just given it's his first championship four appearance, there's a lot of pressure there. It's the first championship four appearance for Hendrick Motorsports as well since 2016. So this isn't even a team that's been used to being in the championship four. And given that this team, even when they've been really good, have had a lot of errors in the races that they've even been good at. You look at just this past week where they had a slow pit stop, cost them a few positions, and then almost had a penalty that put them back into the 20s. Obviously, we talked about that quite a bit earlier this week. You can check out that clip or the full show on YouTube. It's interesting to me because I feel like maybe the magic is there in Jimmie Johnson's final race with the neon number as well, that maybe Chase Elliott goes out, wins that championship for Hendrick Motorsports, and it's kind of like the passing of the torch moment. I don't know, but I just feel like, especially with Penske being so good, I just can't bet against Denny Hamlin as well as being the fourth guy for me personally. So Chase Elliott's my number four guy, even though I could very easily see him go out and win that race.
Yeah, I think it's all up for grabs, man. Like,
this is so close.
I would not be surprised if it's a four-wide battle battle at the finish line. Like, I think it's that even. So
just wait until there's a late race restart and they get the dog leg.
Just give me Logano wrecking another Gibbs car probably in the last little bit for a restart for a championship.
Or Kyle Busch wrecks Joey Logano. I don't know, maybe a little bit of retribution.
Come on, let's go.
Okay.
But speaking of Joey Logano, I have him as my third guy in the championship this season. So that's the reason I didn't go with him in my fantasy lineup. When I look at this, I think he's just not going to be right there with those guys. I mean, going with the most prep time is a big advantage for these guys. It's very difficult to try and bet against the 22 car this weekend. But I'm going to go with my guns here a little bit and say that Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, two guys that you could probably have as your number one and number two guys, I'm going to have Logano finishing third. So the stats don't really line up with what I'm saying, basically, with my opinion. But with 2020, I don't want the stats to really prove what I want to happen. So
that's fair.
I'm going to go with Logano here. Despite him winning the spring race, when I look at what Truex had to do this past weekend as well at Martinsville, and it's just so difficult to do it in the clutch moments. And it wasn't Truex's fault that he lost that race on Sunday. He could easily have been in Chase Elliott's position here this weekend. But I just think that it's just too much to ask for Logano. I don't think he's going to win 2 championships in 3 seasons. I think that would be nuts, especially this season. He's the most undeserving of the 4, in my opinion. So I think Logano's going to finish third in the championship for the season.
I also have Logano as my number 3 guy, which makes sense because we both don't have him in our fantasy lineups, which means that we both got to have him 3 or 4 at the very least. Otherwise, we're insane. So
we're just stupid.
Yeah, in that case. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. It is difficult going and betting against the guy that won this race at this track earlier this season and has the most prep time. But that being said, I just feel like Keselowski's just been stronger with this package. And even though Logano won earlier this year, I think it's going to be a lot closer between all four of these guys really going into this championship race. And just given the lack of consistent top 5 speed or top 3 speed from Logano since the return, of course, just has the one win since then. So I'm just going to say that Logano is my number 3 guy. And again, of course, very easily could go out and win the race. Probably will, because we both don't have him in our fantasy lineup. But I have him just slightly ahead of Elliott just because of that experience factor and with the win earlier this season at Phoenix. But I feel like Keselowski and, for me, Hamlin just have the edge over them as well.
Yeah, so I've got Elliott and Keselowski as my top 2, and you have Denny Hamlin and Keselowski as your top 2. So, oh boy, this is it.
Here it is.
Champion prediction. Whoever I say is the champion, I predict to win the race as well, as what that goes along with. So here we go. My champion for 2020 is, drum roll please, it is Brad Keselowski.
Okay.
He is my champion for 2020. God, that was difficult to say and predict here, man. I can't believe I just said those words. But I'm going with Brad Keselowski. I don't know. I just got this feeling about the 2 car this weekend. It's just been nagging me for a couple of days here. It just feels like it's leading up to this moment. Brad feels confident. And he says that this is probably the most confident he's felt going into a championship race over the past couple of days doing the media stuff. So when I listen to Brad hear that, I know he knows what he's thinking and he knows what he's doing. And it's quite the risk to say that Jeremy Bolins, the guy that was probably maybe the third of the trio over there for the crew chiefing at Penske, could be in a position here to win a championship with Brad Keselowski and beat his former crew chief over there in Paul Wolfe against Joey Logano. What a story that would be. I hope they kind of mention that in the madness that probably will be Sunday. But yeah, I've got Chase Elliott finishing second and Brad Keselowski is my champion. It's too much to go against his speed on the 750 horsepower package this season. And even when he had a damaged car here in the spring, he was ahead of Logano for a lot in that final stint there before pitting and just being off sequence on tires. So if they play the strategy right, I think they've been super consistent. And when I look at the speed that they had at Martinsville here at late, they grinded it out, going from the back with the speeding penalty all the way up to 4th. I like the 2 car a lot this weekend. And I don't know. It's just a weird feeling, man. I can't believe I just said Brad Keselowski's my pick for the championship, but he is. So who are you thinking is your 2020 NASCAR Cup Series champion?
I love that pick, but he is not my 2020 champion. I'm going to say Denny Hamlin goes out and gets it done. I think that people are maybe sleeping on Denny Hamlin just a little bit because of the recent results. But if you're a team that feels confident about going out and making it into the race, and granted that Martinsville results definitely leaves me with some concern, but you also don't want to play all your cards early on as well. And we know that with, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Hamlin going into this race with a new car as well. I really like Hamlin's recent results at Phoenix, and I really, really like that pressure-filled victory at Phoenix last year in the playoffs. So looking at this race, if we look back a few weeks ago, I said that Chase Elliott would make it through to the championship floor.
You got 3 out of the 4 for that prediction. You got 3 out of the 4 for that. I didn't do too bad. I didn't do too bad. But people said going into the round of 8 there that maybe Chase Elliott didn't have that clutch factor. And I said, you know what? This is the year that I think he goes out and gets it done. And sure enough, he had that clutch factor at Martinsville and he got the win. People say the exact same kind of stuff about Denny Hamlin where, once he gets to the championship race, he chokes. And yes, he's done that in the past. But you know what? It worked out. The prediction with Chase Elliott is 2020. Weird stuff happens. Maybe this is the year that Denny Hamlin doesn't choke in the championship race. I like Phoenix as the championship race for Denny Hamlin here. As I said earlier, I like the recent results here. The new car is definitely an interesting strategy. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But you know what? There's just something about that 11 team this year. I think that they finally go out and get it done. That's a great pick. He's my fourth guy, but he's a great pick. I mean, you can go any way, man. I'm not surprised that you went that way. You stuck with your guns here.
To
your
that
initial
point,
championship prediction.
I almost put Chase Elliott as my championship winner, and he's my number 4 guy. I really thought about going with that, maybe Hendrick Motorsports, Jimmie Johnson factor, and maybe, but I didn't want to buy into the storyline too much. So I'm going with Denny Hamlin still in this one.
You've almost convinced me that I should pick Hamlin as my champion. Like it's just basically that easy to do
so
that.
Close. It's so close.
Because it's so difficult to look at previous playoffs because there's been so many different variables and so many different kind of ways people have won the championship. Like there's been people that have won the way Hamlin's done it, where they kind of come in slow and then they just kind of win the one-off race. I think back to last season with Kyle Busch, didn't have the greatest kind of finish to the season there, but on the one-off race that they needed it the most, he goes out there and wins it. So there's definitely that magic over there at GGR. Can they replicate that again? And then, Chase Elliott, the underdog, the guy that's coming in here with no championships, along with Hamlin, but this is his first championship for appearance. You look at someone like, you think back to 2014, Kevin Harvick kind of thing, maybe in that regard, in that clutch kind of moment where they won it in the penultimate race and then they go on and win the championship the next weekend. Brad Keselowski is an interesting one where I don't know if there's really a direct correlation to Keselowski. I think maybe back to Jimmie Johnson in 2016 a little bit, just kind of being under the radar a little bit and just sneaking their way in there. And then showing up when they needed it the most, when other people maybe have issues and they capitalize on that. I could see Brad Keselowski doing that on Sunday. And then Joey Logano. It's hard to try not to think about the 2018 championship for himself as a direct correlation to this one, as he was kind of struggling through the season and then he found his form in the playoffs. I think the 22 team has done that to an extent. So I think the Logano could kind of go back to 2018 as a reference if he wanted to look at himself. So there's a lot of different storylines here, a lot of different ways to win a championship. And either way, you could have any of these 4 winning the championship. There's no clear favorite, as the betting odds have kind of shown. So it's up to the drivers at this point. It's completely in their hands. Anybody, there could be 12 different championships this weekend, and it basically comes down to that. So that's it. I've got Brad Keselowski as my race winner at Phoenix, and I have him as my champion. I'm guessing you have Denny Hamlin as your race winner, obviously. So Hamlin is going to be the race winner at Phoenix for Kyle and the champion. So we could be entirely wrong. We were entirely wrong last season, so don't trust us on this
across the board. So hopefully at least one of us gets one champion pick right.
That would be great. That would just make us look like this entire season of body of work was not for nothing. But we could just be totally wrong and miss it this season as well. I wouldn't be surprised. So any final thoughts for the final time for our NASCAR preview show? This is crazy to say. We've only got one motorsport left after this that we cover on a regular basis in Formula One. So this is it for NASCAR. We'll obviously break it all down on Monday, but the last preview show of the season. So any final thoughts here, Kyle, before we wrap up?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride this year. It's been great doing the show and the previews and getting my ass kicked in fantasy as well. And I'm going to miss doing this part for the next 3-4 months until we get racing back in February, hopefully. So gonna miss that, but it's going to be great action all weekend long, starting tomorrow night or tonight if you're watching this on Friday or listening, with the Truck Series Championship, and hopefully that just sets the bar super, super high for the rest of the weekend. And hopefully Phoenix lives up to the championship finale. Obviously, Homestead's been a great host for the final race for many, many years, of course. And hopefully Phoenix can take the torch and provide some great racing as well. It's a great facility, one of the newer ones in NASCAR, and hopefully it serves as a good host for the final race.
Yeah, I can't believe it's the end of the NASCAR Cup Series
season. It's insane, man.
It's been one heck of a ride doing this show over the last couple of months. It's helped keep me sane during these crazy times. It's been something that I can actually count on week in and week out, and that's been awesome.
It's like the one constant.
Exactly. And the one constant that we can be sure of is that we don't know who's going to win the championship this weekend. So that just shows you how crazy and unpredictable this season has been. But it's been one heck of a ride to break it all down lap by lap, race by race, and weekend by weekend. It's coming down to this. The finale in Phoenix, Arizona at Phoenix. Thank God they changed it from ISM Raceway.
Yeah.
It's Phoenix Raceway. They went back to their roots, and it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm curious, just to end the show, where they're going to put the championship stage, because it's on an angle kind of thing. It's not like Homestead on the front stretch. So I don't know where they're going to put it. Maybe in that turn 3 and 4, that big kind of area there, I guess it's 3 and 4 there with the big O'Reilly sign that it's usually there. But it's going to be a totally new look for the championships that are being
it's going to be weird. That's for sure.
Yeah, so we'll see if Phoenix did anything with the if they can get some yellow burnouts or blue burnouts or something like that with the smoke, like Phoenix or like Homestead did for many seasons. But we'll see what it all looks like at Phoenix come Friday, Saturday afternoon, and Sunday as well, depending on where you are. I'm glad that it's going to be on the West Coast, so it's actually kind of similar time frame with myself. But nonetheless,
I believe it's 8 p.m. start on the Friday on the East Coast, 5 p.m. start for Xfinity on the Saturday, and then 3 p.m. I believe.
I think it's 3
for the Cup Series finale on Sunday. So some solid start times for both of us here, which is nice.
Yeah, going to be on NBC, the big network for both the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series race. So we're getting all the attention for one final time for NASCAR this season. And thank you so much for watching or listening. Make sure to go like and subscribe this video. And it's been one heck of a ride. Make sure to go follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag as well. We'll have our I'll put out a Jimmie Johnson thank you graphic just as a little teaser.
I'll be putting out our championship picks as well.
All right. So we've got plenty more to cover and post here over the next couple of days. So with that, Kyle, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman, signing off for now. Thank you for listening and watching. We'll talk to you on Monday, where a champion will be crowned.